Everybody get up.
Not all that far at all. To this day in 2013, only 13 years ago, when
Trading at Schwab is now powered by Ameritrade, bringing you an expanding library of education with even more ways to sharpen your trading skills. Access new online courses, insightful webcasts, articles, engaging videos, and more, all curated just for traders. Plus, guided learning paths with content designed to fit your unique interests. No sifting to find exactly what you need, so you can spend your time learning to trade brilliantly. Learn more at schwab.com/trading.
Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke began a 13-week run at number 1 on the U.S. singles chart. T.I., the rapper, was also featured on that track, and it was produced by Pharrell Williams. But Robin Thicke and Blurred Lines, number 1, and stayed there for 13 weeks beginning this day, the 22nd of June, back in 2013. What is, I asked myself, Robin Thicke up to now? Because I feel as though he was here for a minute. Wasn't he here for about a minute? I think he was, according to Wikipedia. And that's all I've got to go on at this point, because I don't spend a whole lot of time investing in searching what Robin Thicke is up to. But it says he's part of the Masked Singer and On Earth and in Heaven. That sounds like a prayer we used to recite in Sister Helene's grade 4 elementary school class. Nonetheless, that's what Robin Thicke is up to. And of course, Robin's middle name would be Alan, as in the dad on the TV show Growing Pains. And anybody that grew up in and around the same era I did saw a very young Kirk Cameron. And wait a minute, was it his actual sister, Candace Cameron? I think it was. Anyway, Kirk Cameron was on that show, and Alan Thicke played the dad. And I wondered, this is how my Monday mornings go, okay? You know how this works. Stream of consciousness every day on the show. What comes into my mind then comes out of my mouth, and you are subjected to it. Is Alan Thicke dead or alive? I had to Google. 10 years ago, Alan Thicke passed away. He was also the one who sang. He might have even written the song, the theme song for Growing Pains. Nonetheless, Alan Thicke, do you remember the Thick of the Night TV talk show from back in the day? We've tried a lot of things in this country, some of them better than others, and the Thick of the Night talk show, perhaps not our best effort at late night talk TV. I don't think that Alan Thicke could hold himself up against the likes of, it was probably still Carson back then, wasn't it? Maybe Leno. Anyway, Robin Thicke, this day, 2013, Blurred Lines, a number 1 hit. Good Monday morning. I hope you had a great weekend. Listen, I had a chance to catch up with a lot of you IRL, as they say, in real life over the weekend, and it was lots and lots of fun to do that. So thanks to everybody who came out to the Kitchener Panthers game yesterday for a little Father's Day at the ballpark. The Barrie Baycats are the first place team in the Canadian Baseball League standings right now. And I think, having watched them yesterday, I now understand why. Because they hit home runs. And they hit a lot of home runs. I don't think the Barrie Baycats scored any runs. No, there was something in the 7th inning or so. Anyway, lots of home runs, 8 of them to be exact. So I think the Barrie Baycats' plans for winning the Canadian Baseball League this year is just to hit more home runs than any other team has hit in the history of Canadian Baseball League play. I don't know. Lots of home runs. So it was a big win for the Barrie Bay Cats, but also a big win for Farwell for Hire, because Waterloo Region Sports and Entertainment, that would be the Schooley and Hirani families, were donating $5 for every ticket sold to that game yesterday, and there were hundreds of you there. And also the proceeds of the 50-50 raffle are being donated to our Farwell for Hire fundraising efforts. So it was a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon. And as far as fundraising goes, doesn't get much easier than that. On Saturday, it was nice to see a bunch of you out at Sweet Caroline's on Ottawa Street in Kitchener, where we enjoyed some ice cream and some specialty coffees. A lot of Saturday afternoon espressos. What were you up to on Friday night, I wonder? Anyway, you do you. It was good to see you on Saturday afternoon. And after that, when I was finished at Sweet Caroline's, I made a trip down to what somebody refers to as the best little town in the world. And that somebody would happen to be the one and only Moose. Mikey Reeves, our bus driver for the Kitchener Rangers, lives in his words, the best little town in the world, the beautiful village of Ayr. And I went out there and he let me get on his riding lawnmower. So he watched while I mowed. But when you're on a riding lawnmower, he gave me a cold beer. I tooled around the property for a bit. And it's always nice to connect with our Kitchener Rangers family in the off season. So that was Saturday. And then, oh my goodness, Friday night too. Were we ever busy? And did we ever have fun at KW Escape on Friday night? Wendy and Jess, who run that joint, let me tell you how well they run it and how much effort they put into the games that you get to play. Try to escape from these various rooms that they have, the games that they have set up for you. And honestly, with the level of detail, and I absolutely loved it. I was blown away at what goes into creating these games and making it such a fun experience for you. But KW Escape is the place. You can't go wrong. You really can't. And we had lots of fun, met a bunch of people, including my little buddy Ben, who is a local CF warrior. Ben and I met at the Walk to Make CF History a couple of years back over at Waterloo Park, and we got to reconnect on Friday night and try to escape the Green Diner together at KW Escape. And we did it. We did it with a second to spare. I'm not going to say that clock stayed on 1 second for a little longer than 1 second. I'm just going to say there was 1 second left on the clock when we got out of the Green Diner together at KW Escape. But again, thanks to Wendy and Jess. Strongly recommend for something a little bit different in the way of entertainment. Hard to go wrong with the folks at KW Escape and the effort they put into making your evening a fun one. So great weekend of fundraising. Lots to come this week, including, I'll just give you a shout out about this because what an opportunity on Wednesday afternoon. We know it's the next game for Team Canada at the World Cup. It's a big one against the Swiss. And there's going to be a watch party out at the Research and Tech Park, which is at the University of Waterloo, just off Columbia there. If you're headed Columbia out towards Northwest Waterloo, you take the right into the Research and Tech Park, not far past Phillip, right past the LRT tracks. We all know where the LRT tracks are because we get stopped by the trains when we're driving along Columbia, right? Anyway, hang a right into the Research and Tech Park. Follow around until you see the big tents up and the watch party that's going to be going on. We're going to have food on site. We're going to have some beverages, thanks to our friends at Block 3 Brewing in St. Jacobs, good Farwell for Hire partners. And we're going to raise some money for Farwell for Hire while watching the Canada-Switzerland soccer match on Wednesday afternoon. How much fun is that? I also discovered, well, maybe I rediscovered. Bottom line is I should have said this sooner or reminded you of it sooner. So allow me, please, the opportunity to do so now. And that is I was enjoying a little snack on Friday afternoon. And I'm like, I don't know why I haven't said this more often this month, but the snack that I was enjoying was a hat trick shortbread cookie from Dana Short Gourmet and Gifts on Herb Street in Waterloo. And Dana Short, again, like they have in the past, has made these cookies specially for the Farwell for Hire fundraiser. And they're called the Hat Trick Shortbread because they've got 3 different kinds of chips in them. Hat trick in hockey, 3 goals, hat trick in shortbread cookies, 3 chips. But these things are fantastic. Like, they're so good. So good. So this is a month-long thing. If you go into Dana Short and you buy some hat trick shortbread cookies, $2 from every bag sold is being donated to Farwell for Hire. So please support our friends at Dana Short. And while you're at it, how about the Sweet and Savory Pie Company? Just Love Pie in Uptown Waterloo or in the Blackstone Plaza. $2 from every dozen butter tarts. If you want them with raisins, you be that way. It's up to you. I don't care. I know how I like them. I know the proper way to eat a butter tart. You do you, whether you get them with raisins or without. Get them with some pecans or pecans. Do what you want. $2 from every dozen sold. Support Farwell for Hire. So please consider in the next, what are we down to? 8 days? Holy, are we down to 8 days left for our Farwell for Hire fundraising. We'll talk about the 50-50 raffle, jackpot over $100,000 now coming up. But support our partners if you would. Dana Short Gourmet and Gifts and the Sweet and Savory Pie Company, who have got some great things that you can enjoy. Butter tarts, hat trick shortbread cookies. You will not be disappointed. Everything in moderation, okay? Even your sugar intake, but these things are delicious.
1, 2, 3, 4. Can I have a little more? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I love
All right, how about 5 for your Farwell Show 5 to start this Monday morning, the 22nd of June. Number 1, Statistics Canada says high gas prices pushed the annual rate of inflation to 3.2% in May. That's up from 2.8% in April, and it marks the first time annual inflation has topped 3% since late 2023. Number 2, it's a big political shakeup in Britain.
Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
That is British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announcing his resignation forced out by his party after losing voter support. He will remain as caretaker until Labour chooses a new leader. Former Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham confirmed on social media that he will put himself forward to succeed Starmer. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Waterloo Region Public Health has been awarded $1.9 million in funding from Health Canada's Emergency Treatment Fund to support rapid community-based response to addiction and overdose. The funding will support the integrated work of 5 collaborating partners, including Sanguine Health Centre, the Working Centre, Thrive HIV, Crow Shield Lodge, and the Canadian Mental Health Association of Waterloo Wellington to address urgent community needs. Number 4, the Alzheimer's Society of Waterloo Wellington gathered more than $170,000 during its walk for Alzheimer's. Hundreds of people gathered in Guelph, Mount Forest, Kitchener, Cambridge on May the 30th to show support for people living with dementia and their caregivers. And number 5, on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the Kitchener Panthers play a rare Monday nighter tonight at home to the Welland Jackfish. The Barry Baycats walloped the Kitchener Panthers yesterday by a score of 18-7. Did I mention the Barry Baycats? They hit a lot of home runs.
You go to the box, you feel shame.
And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning, the 22nd of June. We'll take a time out and we come back like we always do with your Monday morning wake-up call. Either you can make it or I will. And I'll tell you, I got my eyes on you zombies out there. I promise you that. Your morning wake-up call right after this. It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I mentioned before the break when it comes to our morning wake-up call today, I'm looking at you, zombies. I bring up zombies, not because I'm a fan of the living. Is it The Living Dead? Return? No, what's that show on Sunday? What is it, Jen? You just tell me. You just put on your microphone and tell me over there. It's What is The Walking Dead? The Walking Dead. I got it now. It's The
Walking Dead, yeah.
Thank you. Jeepers creepers. Where were you when I needed you 20 seconds ago? You see, I don't watch much of the zombie TV, although I did enjoy the movie Zombieland. And I like some of the zombie movies. Anyway, you remember the so-called zombie law that we talked about in this province? And I know it got people's chaps chafing. Some were very supportive, the zombie law being a law that would issue fines to pedestrians who were walking with their noses buried in the screens of their phones, right? And anyway, we could. It's divisive. I kind of think that, I don't know, what's the alternative? If you don't get ticketed for it, do you get yourself killed for it? Because here's just a couple of things that I encountered just this weekend in this beautiful community that we call home. The first was in downtown Kitchener. I was driving along Cedar Street, okay, and I'm approaching the Kitchener Market at Cedar and King. So the market's on my right. I've just come past the stop sign at Duke Street, so I'm driving towards King Street on Cedar, and the light ahead of me is green. I'm sure of it because I can see it plain as day, and yet 3 younger gentlemen are crossing Cedar Street through the intersection at King. And I did a double take. I'm like, wait, that light in front of me is green, right? Yeah, but they didn't care for the no walk sign as pedestrians, which, is this a big deal? No, I'm paying attention. I see what's going on. They can cross. But one of these young fellas had his nose in his phone the entire time. Now, maybe he's just following the crowd because he's got his buddies there for support and or to be his eyes and ears. But I'm thinking, okay, first of all, you want to cross against the light, cross against the light, right? Was there room to do so? Sure. Do you think maybe you might want to lift your eyes up from your phone when you're crossing against a light at a busy downtown intersection? Just asking for a friend here, nonetheless. And all I could think of was, what if? What if something really awful happened? How awful would I feel as the person driving that vehicle when, again, against the light, when they should not have been crossing, these 3 young men crossed the street, one of them with their nose in their phone? Grand scheme of things, because I saw this well in advance, the worst part for me was the double take. I'm like, am I seeing things? I do have the green light here, don't I? That was the biggest issue. The other time, though, on the weekend again, I'm on King Street again, this time out at Sports World. Now, you know how busy this area is, and I'm at the light at King and Sports World. I'm making my way towards one of my favorite places in this region, which would be Sean's Hell. We know we don't call it Sean's Hill because it is hellish to drive. So I'm on my way towards Sean's Hell, sitting there at the light at King and Sports World. And again, a younger man crossing the street. Now, in this case, he's crossing. It is his turn to cross. But this is, again, a really big intersection, right? There's a lot going on. And the entire time, as this guy was walking across the street, he had his nose in his phone. And all I could think of is, if I were walking out here in an area that is this busy, has this many vehicles, there's a lot going on at that intersection, wouldn't I want to be somewhat aware of my surroundings? He was walking when he was supposed to walk. He was in the crosswalk. That's all well and good. But if it's me, I would want to have some level of awareness of my surroundings. And this guy did not lift his eyes the entire... Now, there's one point. He got about midway, lifted his eyes, put his head back down into his phone, and kept walking. Everything worked out fine. So is that ticket worthy? You be the judge. You want to get into that divisive debate. It just occurred to me again, though, how much the tail is wagging the dog here. These devices, these phones, control us, or some of us anyway, more than we control them. all kinds of things could have happened at that intersection. They didn't. But I kept asking myself, what is it that makes the phone so damned important or so damned attractive that we have to have our nose in it while we are crossing a very, and I mean very busy intersection? So many things were going on around this guy. He had his attention on none of them. And I think it's reckless. I think it's dangerous. I wondered about the cumulative injuries caused by the use of these devices. And remember, I work for one of the largest, the parent company of this radio station is Rogers. We have a lot invested in the telecom side of things. I get that it's in the royal, our vested interest to have these things in your hands and keep you connected at all times. But boy, oh boy, oh boy. What about the neck injuries from looking down all the time? What about the injury suffered when you trip while crossing that street? And then again, the worst things that can happen as you're going about your daily life with the inability to extract your eyes from your phone. I find it fascinating and frustrating all at the same time. And both of those things I saw just this weekend in our fine community. 3 kids crossing against the light, one of them heading his phone the whole time, another guy crossing at King and Sports World. Massive intersection, so many vehicles, didn't lift his eyes for barely a moment from his phone as he crossed the street. At least he was crossing when it was his turn to cross. And, connected to that, as we stay on our roads, and this is something that you and I have talked about before, and I will just reiterate the call, this time from the Montreal Children's Hospital and the BC Children's Hospital. Just this weekend, these 2 major Canadian children's hospitals are saying, hey, you know those scooters that your kids like to whip around on? These things are not toys. That's the message from the Montreal Children's Hospital and the BC Children's Hospital, because they say they are seeing the most hospital visits at these children's hospitals for e-scooter injuries among children aged 13 to 15. What kinds of injuries are you asking about? Traumatic brain injuries, facial trauma, abdominal trauma, fractures, and lacerations. The hospitals say these are very serious injuries that your children are suffering because of their abuse of these electric scooters. They are not toys, say the Montreal Children's Hospital and the BC Children's Hospital. Much like my message about phones and the technology kind of controlling us, it's the law of unintended consequences here. We are more connected than ever, and we are also we lack more awareness than ever of our surroundings because we're so wrapped up in our phones. E-scooters and the ability to get around in an environmentally friendly way easily, there are myriad benefits. And then you've got the other side of things where these things have been modified or just even at 30 kilometers an hour, way too much for young people, and they are suffering serious injuries as a result. All right, we're fast approaching your 9:30 update in the 570 News Center. Just want to give you a heads up 30 minutes from now, just after our 10 a.m. update. Came across some new polling this morning from Research Co. out west, and it shows that there's a dramatic, and I do mean dramatic, increase in the number of Canadians who are in support of a return to the death penalty in this country. So I'll take your calls on that. I want to get your thoughts on the poll and how you feel about the death penalty just after the 10 o'clock news. But after this 9:30 update, we're going to talk about the Strait of Hormuz, present and future, and when will we maybe see a reduction in gas prices. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, we heard last week about the peace deal between Iran and the United States. The Strait of Hormuz was to reopen, and then over the weekend, was it closed again? There is some work still to be done and some more threats levied by U.S. President Donald Trump towards Iran if this strait doesn't get open, stay open. In fact, even threatening that the U.S. will take control of it and Iran, to paraphrase, won't know what hit them in the way of the response from the United States. So I think the peace deal between the U.S. and Iran is tenuous at best. However, getting goods, particularly oil, moving through that Strait of Hormuz would be a very good thing for the world's economy. But even as this peace deal is in its early days, how many days until we see a return to what we might have considered normal with that important shipping route? Behrouz Bakhtiari is an assistant professor of operations management at McMaster University and joins us to talk about it. Behrouz, good morning.
Good morning to you, Mike, and to your listeners.
The Strait of Hormuz, can you just give us a sense of how important it is as a shipping route?
Oh, it's so important. Practically 20% of the global oil and LNG trade transits through the Strait of Hormuz, or at least I should say used to transit through the Strait of Hormuz before the crisis. And that is only one side of the story. All those petrochemicals, the fertilizers, all of those byproducts of oil and LNG production pass through the strait. So it is a very, very important choke point in the global supply chain and the global economy.
And so after being closed for more than 3 months, what does it take for a shipping route such as this to return to anything that we'd consider normal or go back to what it once was?
Yes, for sure. So let me just first answer your question that it will take the better part of a year for everything, all the elements or all the layers of the traffic to go back to pre-crisis. There are incremental movements. So, for example, tankers are the first to move after the strait is fully reopened or partially reopened, followed by cargo shipments and merchandise merchandise shippers. So there are different priority lists, and there's also different orders for the past, but I would say the better part of a year is what it takes for us to go fully back to what it was before.
So what incremental steps, how do you see this process then playing out?
Right. So I need to first mention that there has been a blockade, and that blockade has created congestion. There are right now approximately 500 vessels that are stranded on either side of the strait. So that congestion needs to first be cleared, which is the easier part of the story, because that could take anywhere from 3 weeks to 8 weeks on a pessimistic timeline to be cleared. But that is, the easier part. What happened was the IRGC, Iranian military, or at least one wing of the military, what they did was they laid naval mines in the Strait of Hormuz on the passage. Think of the Strait of Hormuz as a 3-lane highway. There is one lane that's closer to the shorelines of Iran. There is another lane that's closer, that's kind of hugging the Oman coastline, and then there is the middle lane. The middle lane is the most important and the widest lane, which of the strait that is already very, very narrow. Now that middle lane is now laden with mines, and there are vessels from the UK, from Germany, France, and the United States as we speak right now that are actively hunting and clearing these mines. So whatever traffic we are seeing has to use the upper lane and the lower lane, which are not designed for heavier traffic. That's one story. Another side, which is very, very important, is as soon as the crisis started, practically all insurance companies insuring ships going through Strait of Hormuz increased their premiums significantly, 500 to 800% increase in premium levels, which practically brought the traffic to a halt. So, yes, the IRGC did attack some ships trying to pass through the strait without Iran's authorization, but the bigger piece that really stopped the traffic was insurance. So ships did not even try to pass because of the higher insurance, and in some cases, lack of insurance, because insurance also expired for many of the ships. And that is basically what happened. That needs to go back to normal. The mines need to be cleared, and these are the biggest two pieces, and there are some additional pieces that, if you want, I can talk about.
I would love to hear about those additional pieces, just to get this sense of, why we're looking at a year perhaps for this to be reopened to what we once knew. Yeah.
So the mine clearance, again, it's a very, very delicate operation. Think about it this way. An insurance company, for the insurance company to bring the premium down to what it was before the crisis, we need to have sustained periods of time without any incident, and also the assurance that there are no mines in the Strait of Hormuz. That process takes months. So mine clearance could at least take 2 months. And, on some accounts, they would say 3 to 4 months would be required to remove and clear all of those mines. Again, insurance companies, it does not snap back with a signature. It takes time. Insurance companies need to develop trust that the waterway is safe. People talk about 4 to 6 months. Some pessimistic accounts talk about 9 to 12 months before insurance companies would feel reassured that the passage is safe and would lower the insurance amounts. And that is why we are looking at the better part of a year for traffic to return to the pre-crisis levels. And you mentioned about the additional pieces. There's this additional piece. So I should first say it was the first time in modern naval shipping history that both the Strait of Hormuz and the Red Sea Suez Pathway were closed at the same time and together. This practically disrupted a major route in the global supply chain. So what major companies, shipping companies, did was reroute their shipments to around the Cape of Good Hope, which is at the lower end of the continent of Africa. This adds 16 days on average to the length of each trip, which is much, much longer, becomes much more expensive when you account for the added insurance, the added holding cost, and added fuel cost. So diverted routing all of those routings need to go back to their pre-crisis routings, which was through the Suez Canal, Red Sea, and that is also going to take at least 6 months. The reason is, when this rerouting happened, many shipping companies committed to taking the Cape of Good Hope for the rest of 2026. And for that to expire and also for them to reschedule new routing, it's going to take months. And there is one other element that I would like to talk about, and that is container imbalance. Basically, the global supply chain operates on a balance mechanism where you have empty containers where the merchandise to be shipped is, for example, in China, Southeast Asia. So China requires a lot of empty containers to be filled and then put on their way to, let's say, Europe, North America, Middle East, and so on. And then the empties need to be on their way back to Southeast Asia or China. What happened was, because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and also the Red Sea Suez Canal, many transshipment points received empties that do not use empties. So, for example, Europe is drowning in empties. Empties do not need to be in Europe. Empties need to be in China. So this container imbalance adds another wrinkle to the whole system. That also will take approximately 4 to 6 months to show some signs of recovery. I have to also say that even before the crisis, there was an imbalance in containers. So we were not in a perfect situation, but the blockade made it much, much, much worse. So yes, it is going to take months for us to see full relief, or at least something that we could call sustained and established relief.
And to that end, then, Behrouz, if we're talking months for this sustained and established relief, most people here in this part of the world, of course, connect the problems in the Strait of Hormuz to our gasoline prices. Should we just hang on there and expect prices to remain high?
Not necessarily. The price has already come down since last week. So supply chains are very unforgiving because they are slow, and obviously the trips take months, and that is why the really take months to go back to show its face. But when it comes to fuel prices, much of it is based on promise and sentiment, as we have already seen lower prices at the pump. I should mention that crude tankers get priority as the strait is reopening, so they will be the first vessels to pass. I would estimate 2 to 4 weeks is when we see more relief at the gas pump, with 6 to 8 weeks from the date of reopening, let's say today or this weekend, where we can see a considerable relief at the gas pump. I should mention, however, that in Canada, we have the federal excise tax relief right now, which is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It's 10 cents per liter. That will expire on the 7th. So consumers should keep in mind that there is this tax relief that will expire in September, but hopefully we will see relief within 2 to 4 weeks at the gas pump, with more coming down the road 6 to 8 weeks. So that is at the gas pump. But when it comes to the price of goods on the shelf at the store, that is where we are looking at least 6 months, because all those vessels need to pass, the routings need to be rescheduled, insurance need to be lower, fuel costs. So it's a multifaceted problem. All of that would play a role in the final price of goods on the shelf, and that is when we need to be a little bit more patient. But the gas pump comes first.
It's great to get this perspective. Behrouz, I appreciate your time on the show today. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
You too. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Behrouz Bakhtiari is an assistant professor of operations management at McMaster University. We are measuring not in weeks, but in months, although sounds like Behrouz has some optimism insofar as the price at the pumps, which has come down somewhat from the highs earlier this spring. But that notwithstanding, this is where we feel it the most, right? We are the proverbial little guy or girl in all of this. These things are playing out on a geopolitical scale, and they impact us right here in our pocketbooks, for the prices we're paying for fuel, for the prices we're paying for other goods that rely and move through this important shipping route, the Strait of Hormuz. The other piece of this, though, and it was talked about during All News Mornings today with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas, the sort of continuing back and forth between the United States and Iran, the unrest that remains in the Middle East, but particularly to the U.S. and Iran here, with the latest threats from U.S. President Donald Trump. And, you know, the states will take over the Strait of Hormuz and there will be tolls and Iran won't know what hit them. Didn't we hear all of this before? Like, is this the biggest walk down embarrassment for any president in the history of the Oval Office? An absolutely unnecessary war that accomplished precisely zero of its intended missions. Iran still has nuclear capability. As far as I can tell, they've just promised to play nice with it. Right? Oh yeah, we promise we won't fully develop a nuclear weapon. Like, it was a war that nobody asked for. It was something that Donald Trump had said he would never engage in, right? He was going to end all of these wars. Instead, he begins one and accomplishes nothing that he set out to do before walking back with his tail between his legs. He's got to be, like, his face has got to be redder than his hair right now. Or is the hair orange? I don't know. Either way, it's embarrassing. It's utterly embarrassing. And threat after threat on social media is not going to change the embarrassment that this has been to the Donald Trump administration. I don't know how you feel about that aspect of the quote-unquote peace deal here with Iran, or how you feel about the price of goods that you are paying for coming down as we try to get this important shipping route reopened. But your thoughts are always welcome. Phone lines open to you on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
As soon as the crisis started, all insurance companies insuring ships going through the Strait of Hormuz increased their premiums significantly, 500 to 800%, which practically brought the traffic to a halt. The IRGC did attack some ships trying to pass through the strait without Iran's authorization, but the bigger piece that really stopped the traffic was insurance.
Behrouz Bakhtiari is an assistant professor of operations management at McMaster University. Joins us to talk about the reopening of the Hormuz Strait, how open it is, how much more open it will get. I'm not really sure from where I'm sitting, but I'm just here in the region of Waterloo, far removed from what the U.S. administration is trying to impose on Iran and this peace deal and the strait itself. But we are paying a price. There's no question about that. I also think this peace deal, if that's what you want to call it, is a real walk down by U.S. President Donald Trump, and quite frankly, an embarrassment for the administration right now in the U.S. But your thoughts always welcome on the show. Our phone line's open to you at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Gary is with us this morning. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Good.
Actually, I just wanted to say that I think that was one of the most informative interviews you've had on your show. Like, I learned a lot just by listening to what he had to say. And you say that Donald Trump never accomplished anything. I can think of one thing he accomplished.
Besides embarrassing himself?
Yeah, besides that,
okay,
which is number one. The fact that he made himself a lot richer than what he was before, and all his buddies as well.
I can certainly understand that point of view, for sure.
Anyway, just my opinion. One last thing. I know I don't call in all that often, and I probably should because I have so much I'd want to talk to you about, but I never ever did get a number.
Well, I mean, Gary, I would be more than happy to issue you one. How does number 392 sound?
I would like to pick my own, but I will not be that guy, and I will take 392.
Be that guy. Come on, Gary, you get what you want on this show. You can share your opinion anytime. And what number would you like, sir? If it's still available, it's yours.
Well, I just wanted to go like way out there because, I'm getting older and I can't remember a lot these days. So like 1,968.
1968 is still open, and it now belongs to you. What's the first letter of your last name, Gary?
C.
Gary C. 1968 is your Farwell's Force membership number.
That's the year of my birth, so it'll be easy to remember.
I had a feeling that's where we were going with that. All right, my friend, you got it.
Thanks, Mike. Have a great day.
You too, Gary. Great to hear from you. I love when Farwell's Force grows by another official member. Listen, if you listen for 15 minutes a day, every day, you are welcome to have a number. You don't have to call in, but I love it when you do. Gary says he's always got lots of opinions. That's what this show is for. We share opinions. We exchange ideas. It's all about the conversation. And yes, a 15-minute daily listener is a Farwell's Force member in good standing. Sequentially, we're up to number 392. If you want you can't have 1968 now, but you can have 1967. You see, because that's the last time the Leafs won the Stanley Cup, or 1969. Anyway, pick a number, go in sequence, be a Farwell's Force member, a force for good, a force for change, a force to be reckoned with. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, this is one of those things that I came across just this morning, and it caused me to go, I raised my eyebrow, and I thought to myself, well, if I find this curious and or interesting, you likely will as well. So I thought I would just solicit your opinions on the subject. Just thinking back on Gary's call just before the 10 a.m. news. He says, I should call more often. I've always got opinions on things. Well, maybe this is your opportunity for that. And I suspect it's one of those things that universally we will have an opinion on. In fact, if I think back on my earliest days, even just filling in as a talk show host from time to time, the old joke in this business was, if you want to make the phones ring, just talk about abortion or capital punishment. I know. And I'm not trying to lean on an old joke. This is new research. It made me raise my eyebrow. And so I thought I'd ask you about it. It's not about abortion, but it is about the other one, capital punishment. And according to more than half of the respondents to a recent poll by Research Inc., we are in favor in this country of a return to the death penalty. By a 2-to-1 margin, Canadians are more likely to support the return of the death penalty than to maintain the status quo in murder cases. So I'm curious as to your thoughts on what has long been, as long as I can remember, a very contentious issue. In Canada, the death penalty, the application of, ended more than 50 years ago, back in the 1970s. The last time anyone was subjected to and put to death under the death penalty in this country goes back to the early 1960s. But according to this representative national sample, 60% of Canadians support reinstating the death penalty for murder in Canada. Compare that to the 30% who are opposed. So again, it's a 2-to-1 margin that shows Canadians are more likely to support the return of the death penalty rather than maintain the status quo in murder cases. What are your thoughts on the reinstatement of the death penalty? 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. You can also email if you prefer. It's mike@570news.com. But I found this really interesting. We eliminated the death penalty in this country in July of 1976. So 50 years ago, the death penalty was taken off our books. And as I mentioned earlier, it was about 15 years before that, the early 1960s, when the last time the death penalty was applied in this country. But 60% of us in this poll from Research Co. want the death penalty reinstated for murder cases. And it just strikes me that just before the 10 a.m. news, one of the commercials we heard is how Ontario is making things safer for residents by building more prisons. So there's one side of the coin, right? Let's build more prisons and put more people in them. And I guess in this case, if you are charged with murder and found guilty, you can be put in prison for a quote-unquote life sentence, or you actually get sentenced to your own life and the death penalty gets reinstated. Would you support the idea, Let's go to the phones, get your thoughts on this. We'll start with Terry. Farwell's Force, member number 387. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, Mike. I had to jump in on this one. I like the idea of what they were proposing, or the idea of bringing the death penalty back, but I'd be more in favor of them enforcing a penalty of life in prison when it meant life in prison, instead of getting out in good behavior after 10 years or something. But I'd be more in favor of the current laws actually being enforced and sticking the way it's called.
Terry, I hear where you're coming from, and I appreciate the call on that. I've heard that before. If a life sentence actually meant a life sentence, meaning you go to jail and you do not get out of jail, you stay there until you take your last breath. Terry says he'd be more in favor then of that as opposed to the death penalty. Let's find out how Dennis feels. Good morning, Dennis.
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Not bad.
Good.
The boat's still ready to go, you know.
You know what? Okay, this will be a side conversation for you and I, but my beloved and I were just talking about that last night. And anyway, we will get on this this boat together, Dennis.
Hey, listen, I agree with the fellow that was just on.
You would support life sentences actually being life sentences.
If our judicial system was what it's supposed to be, we wouldn't have to worry about this. But these guys that are out there causing what they're doing and then getting a slap on the wrist and getting out to do it again, that is not right. I think we should have, if it's a life sentence, it's a life sentence. You're in for life. And if we can't do that, I am not opposed to the death penalty when and if it's absolutely proven that the person is guilty.
All right, Dennis, I appreciate that call. And I suspect the sentiment that Dennis shares is shared by others, insofar as we don't feel as though current penalties are stiff enough. Remember that, Dennis says if the judicial system was doing what it was supposed to do, it is. We do have those opportunities for parole after so much of a sentence has been served. Let's go next to Renee. Good morning, Renee.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. 60% of us say the death penalty should be reinstated. What do you think?
Oh, I'm 100% for that, I believe. Personally, I think our judicial system is a joke. With the life sentence, some of those people live better than taxpayer middle-income people that, get 3 square meals a day, they get medication, they get TV time, they get cable, they get the whole shebang. And I strongly believe in bringing back the death penalty. And, as the old saying, an eye for an eye, think of how much money we would save as taxpayers if just brought out the old silver bullet. I know that sounds somewhat harsh, but that's how I feel. My husband and I just had this conversation the other day. And, there's so many people that are just getting off. And your previous caller was saying, they get off in their life sentence and they can appeal it. But if you're truly convicted and you've done this crime and you've admitted, same with child molesters, child killers. I mean, I'm kind of going a little bit off topic, but I think you just put them in a room with the family members and it takes care of itself.
Yeah, listen, Renee, I understand that sentiment as well. This poll in particular was for people found guilty of murder, but I certainly understand that sentiment. And I get exactly like that statement by Renee. I know it sounds harsh, and you can really start swaying me. You know me, I'm a dollars and cents kind of guy on the financial aspect of this. But while the financial cost may be lower, the moral cost is much higher. And does that have any bearing on a criminal trial? But these are the conversations. Marino, good morning.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. And you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good.
My opinion is obviously skewed on this because I have a very personal input into it. But yes, I would be definitely in favor of a return to death penalty. I might even accept the fact if life was truly life. But I think if there's a conviction with no doubt whatsoever and the evidence was there. I see no reason why the convict or the convicted person has a right to continue his life. I really don't.
Yeah, Marino, I appreciate the call and the openness. Marino has shared, I'm not sure on the air, but I will share on his behalf because he shared it with me. But Marino lost a daughter to homicide. So there you go. And I think about this all the time. We've shared the story on the show before of Don Edwards, a former goaltender, not just in the National Hockey League, but with our Kitchener Rangers, whose sister was brutally murdered in front of his parents. And all these years later, every time, and the man convicted of it has reached the stage of his prison life where he's getting parole for days or whatever the case may be. And every time these hearings come up, it just reopens these things for Don Edwards and his family. And I think about that a lot. I mean, we can have this conversation about justice for you is different than justice for me. We've had that conversation lots of times. But just imagine essentially being re-traumatized or having this story reopened every time the convicted killer has another chance at some level of freedom. It never goes away for the family who lost a loved one in that terrible crime. And I can certainly understand where Marino was coming from on that front. Sean is next. Farwell's Force, member number 165. What do you think, Sean? 60% of people polled say bring back the death penalty for murder cases in Canada.
I agree. I mean, honestly, I will agree with a lot of people. If a life sentence was a life sentence, but it's not. And some people just are not fit for society. Maybe we could offer them euthanasia as a choice rather than life in prison. But, yeah, bring back Madame Guillotine.
All right, Sean, I appreciate that. So some people are not fit for society, so I guess we just cull the herd, to put a rather crude description around what Sean says. Brenda, what about you? Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I do support bringing back the death penalty. When you take a life, you forfeit your own life. No get out of jail free card for you. Thanks. Bye.
All right, Brenda, thank you. Directly to the point. Now, it's interesting. 60% of those polled by Research Co. say they support a reinstatement of the death penalty in Canada. Only 30% are opposed to reinstating it in the poll. 60% say yes. 100% of our callers here on the show this morning. So I don't know how representative that is, but a sampling of folks here in the region of Waterloo say yes. 100% of our sampling says bring back the death penalty. If we break this research down geographically, regionally, half of Quebecers, 50%, favor the return of capital punishment. It's higher in Atlantic Canada, where you find 55%. Ontario, 62%. Alberta, 65%. British Columbia, 67%. And Saskatchewan and Manitoba also, 67% of respondents say, yes, let's reinstate the death penalty. We'll take one more on the topic because our good friend Double O George in Cambridge is on the phone. Good morning, George.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Good morning. Those are startling numbers. I never thought I would hear those kind of numbers, especially British Columbia. Mike, I don't know if anybody's put the connection yet. We have MAID now in Canada. Thousands and thousands of Canadians are using MAID to end their life, and yet here are killers, child abusers, rapists who are just in jail sitting there. I think we should put a connection with MAID and capital punishment.
George, an interesting suggestion. I think it kind of ties into what Sean was saying. You have one of two options here. You have life, which means life in prison, or you can have some medical assistance in dying right now, as opposed to spending your days in this prison system. Speaking of MAID, we are working on getting a guest to talk about that with us on the show tomorrow, because as you probably heard, our federal parliament has again put itself into the pause territory when it comes to expanding medical assistance in dying to include those who are suffering only from a mental illness. This has been talked about now for over a year, and Parliament is still not ready to make a decision on it. That came about last week. We'll talk about it on the show tomorrow. We're just lining up that guest as we speak today. So we'll have the conversation tomorrow about medical assistance in dying. This morning, and it's unanimous, I should have kept track, 7 or 8, maybe even 9 calls there, all in support of a reinstatement of the death penalty. I brought it up not because it's an old trick in talk radio, abortion, capital punishment, those are the phone burners we call them. That's not why. There's research that came out. It caught my attention this morning, and I thought, really? 60% of Canadians, according to Research Co., and this poll that was just done, 60% of us support a reinstatement of the death penalty. So when I came across that brand new research, I thought I'd bring it to you and get your thoughts, and now we've had them. It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, we talk on this show about a lot of heavy things. There are big issues to be worked on in our community. There are heavier issues to discuss. But even as we do them, I always like to take a moment every day on the show, because if you get too wrapped up in the news or the heavy issues, you forget the other side of things. You've heard me talk as we're into a municipal election year about the importance of dreaming bigger and thinking of some visionary longer-term projects for our community instead of just focusing on the problems. That's one side of this. And of course, if you get caught up in the headlines and the negative news cycle, you might forget that, 80+% of us, we know, right, are really good people. I like to think 85 to even 90%, particularly around here. So every day around this time, we have a little something by way of reminder.
Not everyone's a jackwagon. Not every heart is cold. Not every promise made to you is gonna turn to gold and fold. Some people mean it when they say they care. Some folks will show up, actually be there. So don't close the door on every soul you meet. Not everyone's a jackwagon on this street.
Let us meet Martin Buer, shall we? He's a resident of this fine region of Waterloo. He's also an avid cyclist. And, Martin Buer is 87 years old. Earlier this month, Martin participated in his final bike-a-thon, something he has been doing with a purpose.
When I retired from House of Friendship after 20 years, retired in 1998, I said to myself, if I get involved in community work again, I would really love it to be around affordable housing. And then I got a phone call from MTC Ontario asking me to join a working group, and I was just thrilled to get that phone call and to get on board with creating this new organization. 30 units, various size units from 1 to 3. And it includes people on social assistance, on minimum wages, and then people with just modest income.
So there you go, 30 units, 1 to 3 bedrooms. This is an affordable housing project in Elmira alongside Menno Homes. And Martin, thanks to his bike-a-thon, raised $115,000 for that project because it's just something that he believes in doing.
Unless you invest in your own family unit and in your own community and then extend it into the community of families, everything collapses. The welfare of one is the welfare of all. The welfare of all includes the welfare of one. So it's a very inclusive and circular kind of spiritual economy.
Martin Buer, in the past 16 years with his bike-a-thons, has raised more than $500,000. 87 years young, completing his last bike-a-thon and raising $115,000 for that affordable housing project in Elmira. Martin Buer, you certainly are not a jackwagon. An update is on the way from the 570 News Center. Before 11, A conspiracy theory, you say? No, we don't engage in conspiracy theories, do we? Well, the mayor of Guelph is throwing cold water on one of them. That's coming up before 11. Plus, right after this update from the 570 News Centers, Hospice navigators and how they demystify end-of-life care. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. There is an old saying that I'm sure you have heard because it's been around for a long time. There are only two certainties in this life, death and taxes. We talk a lot about taxes on this show, maybe not as much about death, but we know that our days on this earth are numbered. How many of those days we get, we do not know, but the end of life is coming. And there are options for us as end of life approaches. And one of our local hospices is hoping to demystify some of those care options that we have when end of life arrives. Maria Empringham is the executive director with Lessard and Innisfree Hospice and joins us on the show this morning. Good morning, Maria.
Good morning, Mike.
And Tian Sun Sitch joins us as well. Tian is the director of programs and services at Lessard and Innisfree. Tian, good morning to you.
Good morning to you as well.
Thank you both for being here. Maria, if I could start with you. Lessard and Innisfree Hospice, can you just give us a sense of what services are offered to those who have arrived at end-of-life care?
So our hospices, we have a location in Cambridge and one in Kitchener. And the care that we provide there is very person-centered. We provide support for, we provide support for individuals and their families. So when they come into hospice, they get personal care here. They get all their meals here. Families are supported through grief and bereavement. We do legacy work with them. We have music therapy, social work. So just a full-rounded support for them as they're going through their end-of-life journey.
And how, Maria, do folks tend to find their way to Lessard and Innisfree? Is it word of mouth? Is it a referral from somebody in the medical community?
So generally, it's through a referral from someone in the medical community. Some people are aware that we exist, and so they request that referral. Others are not aware that we exist and get that information from a medical professional in the community.
So, Tian, what is the intention of a hospice navigator? What kind of work would you do?
So this originally came around when we heard from clinicians and families of the individuals that they get the information of hospice way too late on their journey. And we also hear misinformation or misconceptions about what we do. So what we're set out to do is a new way to help individuals and families learn about the service we provide much earlier in their journey, remove the barriers of the paperwork and the referrals. Anyone who is exploring their options or thinking about what to come, they can come direct to us, getting a tour, ask us questions. One of our 4 navigators would be really happy to help with them, whether it's getting them access to some information, some compassionate conversations, or connect them to some resources that we have or connection to in the community.
And what might we learn on a tour like that at Lessard and Innisfree?
Oh, great loads of things. It's hard to get a sense of exactly what the house feel like and what we do through a pamphlet or, looking at pictures. Coming into the house, you get a sense of how lively the house is actually, and the people living here really get to live out the best days. Seeing the extra miles that the clinicians go to make every moment matter. And we say that a lot of people that we hear from or meet, most of them tell us that they wish to know about this option much sooner.
So how soon could somebody take advantage of one of these tours, Tian?
We are open door to anyone who's interested, either learning about hospice in general or exploring options for themselves or their family. So if they have a serious illness diagnosed, any point in that journey, we're happy to have them come or contact our hospice navigator team.
Maria, one of the things that Tian mentioned there is, and I think it's one of the biggest misconceptions that I've been able to come to understand in my arm's length work with Lessard and Innisfree Hospice, and that is the setting that you are walking into. It's not the dark and somber place that you might expect a hospice where end-of-life care is happening to be.
That's right, Mike. A lot of people do, they view death or even hospice as something that's scary. And our houses are not scary. They're meant to be a home-like environment. They have open spaces where families can come together. They can celebrate birthdays, anniversaries. They can have time together. And there's a lot of happy moments here. It can, there are sad times too, but there are a lot of happy moments here where families really just get to be families, and they don't have to be a caregiver. So they get a lot of really good quality time together.
How are you funded? How do you keep doing the doors? How do you keep the doors open and keep doing the work that you do?
So we do get about 50% of our funding from the government. The other 50% we do have to do through fundraising. So we have amazing donors who support us year after year. We have events that we hold that help to support that fundraising. So most of our programs that we offer, like legacy, social work, our music therapy, those are all funded through our donors.
Tian, what would be the biggest misconception that you would like to see broken down when it comes to hospice care?
Oh, there are so many. That's a great question. I think the recent one that stuck with me is thinking hospice or palliative care is them giving up on life. And I think it's really more about embracing the quality of life in the days that you have. Valuing comfort, valuing quality time, like Maria mentioned, and have the team support yourself, the families through that journey, and again, celebration of life.
I love the work that you do, and I think this is a great way to demystify what happens inside those doors and hopefully introduce more people to this tremendous opportunity that is available in the community. So thank you for the work that you do, and thank you both for joining the show this morning.
Thanks, Mike.
Tian Sun Sitch and Maria Empringham from Lessard and Innisfree Hospice. Maria is the executive director there. Tian is the director of programs and services. Hospice navigators. There's a team of 4 at Lessard and Innisfree that will help to demystify that end-of-life care. Again, having had the opportunity to be there and meet some of the folks who work at Lessard and Innisfree, I mean, you walk in the doors and it's a big, open, bright area, a nice kitchen there that you can prepare meals in. We sat around a table during a little coffee club that they had there. I met my good friend Butter Tart Bob, who's a huge supporter of Lessard and Innisfree Hospice. And I have in the studio somewhere the hand-knitted or crocheted butter tart that was made for me by the great folks there. And it's one of the... My collection here in the studio is getting rather eclectic. I do have a copy of The Wealthy Barber, of course, the Hallman Legacy, a field guide to downtown Kitchener's Art Walk. There's my coffee mug that says Canada needs more Waterloo. I've got my WKRP in Cincinnati Great Turkey Drop shirt, a Farwell's Force T-shirt that somebody made. Somebody laser printed or 3D printed a Maple Leafs sign the other day. So I've got my Toronto Maple Leafs represented in here. A century of, or Woolwich at the turn of the century, looking back to 1900 in Woolwich Township. It goes on and on. A lot of great stuff in the studio, including that handmade, not an actual butter tart that I can eat, which, by the way, in case you missed it or lost track, because there's a lot that goes on during Farwell for Hire Month, but I am once again back onto a butter tart ban. I started the month on a butter tart ban until our Farwell for Hire 50/50 raffle reached a $40,000 take-home prize. $30,000. That's right. It was a $30,000 take-home prize. And once it reached there, I was able to eat butter tarts again. Except that lasted for about 3 days. And then I was off to Hefner Lexus Toyota for a Farwell for Hire fundraising opportunity. I worked the barbecue right alongside Willie and John Hefner during a staff event at Hefner's. And they made their usual donation of $2,000 to our fundraiser. And then they said, it's our 65th anniversary here at Hefner Lexus Toyota, and we would like to make an additional donation of $6,500, $100 for every year that we've been working in this community. But first you have to hold off on eating a butter tart for a full month. So I just got back onto the butter tart bandwagon, and I was immediately off because I'll do anything for charity. You know that. And abstaining from butter tarts for an entire month in exchange for a $6,500 donation. Okay, Hefners, I'm going to do it. So I'm allowed to eat butter tarts again on July the 17th. In the meantime, I stay away from the butter tarts. That means more for you because I've got a pretty good butter tart habit, and we'll earn that donation. Our Farwell for Hire 50/50 jackpot also this weekend went over the magical $100,000 mark. So the take-home prize currently is more than $51,000. The jackpot is more than $102,000. That means $51,000 plus for you, $51,000 plus for cystic fibrosis research. And there is an early bird prize of $2,500 in cash this Friday being awarded by TLC Pet Food. So get your tickets before Friday. Be in on that early bird prize of $2,500 cash. Even if you win that, your number remains in the draw for the overall jackpot, which again, more than $102,000, more than $51,000 take home. You can get tickets right now at cf5050.ca. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, a conspiracy theory in Guelph, you say? And the man who wants to bring a quick end to it. You'll hear from him next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, this is a municipal election year, and I know, we are into summer now. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's solstice. It wasn't a bad day, weather-wise. Beautiful day to be out at the ballpark. We were at the Kitchener Panthers game for a Farwell for Hire day with the Panthers. Great day to take in a ball game. Rough outing for the Panthers, but that's okay. If you can spend a sunny afternoon at the ballpark, you're spending your afternoon in a pretty good place. But that's it. Now the days start getting shorter. Oh, my goodness gracious. Don't make me think about it, please. The dreaded season that I really dread is already on its way back. But I know summertime, carefree, easygoing, you don't want to think much about politics. But I like to just keep you in the loop and just remind you, the municipal election coming up October the 26th. This is the level of government that touches our lives most directly, most often, every day. Some service provided by your municipal government impacts your life. So a reminder, it's coming up. And, when there is an election coming up, really at any level, rumors are sure to follow. If you haven't heard a good rumor by noon, start one of your own. A big rumor flying around the city of Guelph, and Mayor Cam Guthrie, who has announced his resignation, by the way, he's not seeking re-election, but this rumor was gaining so much traction that Mayor Guthrie took to social media over the weekend to dispel it.
I thought I would just address some rumors that I've been hearing over the last week or so. I was at an event on, was it Thursday night? Yeah, Thursday night, I think. And someone pulled me aside and said, hey, I hear you're going to put your name forward again in July to run for mayor. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, that's the rumor. And that's probably the third or fourth time I've heard that in the last week and a bit, I think. So I thought I would just come on here and just tell everybody that is not accurate. I am not running for mayor. I announced fully a few months ago I'm not running, and it's been awesome to hear people, be encouraging to me to stay on. I appreciate that, but as I said, I made a decision with my family that we are going to step aside. It's been amazing. I am emotional, roller coaster, up and down about it the last few months. It's tough, but it is the right thing for me to do right now and with my family. So I just wanted to put those rumors to rest. Just thought I would jump on here. You can hear it directly from me. There's candidates now that have put their names forward, and maybe more will come forward. I think the last day is August the 21st that you can put your name forward. And so that there'll be a full slate of, I'm sure, mayoral candidates and councillor candidates. But for me and my family, our decision is final. And I'm really looking forward to whatever is next for me. And so thank you very much for letting me jump on here just to kind of clear the air on that issue. Especially for some people that think there's like some kind of conspiracy theory stuff going on. There isn't. Okay, I love what I do now. I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss all of you in this role that I've had, but it's time for something different, and whatever that new adventure is going to be awesome. I'm really happy about where things are going, so thank you very much.
So there you go. Guelph mayor, he's still the mayor until October. Cam Guthrie, 3 terms, and he has announced that he is not seeking a 4th. We're wondering about another municipal election candidate, a mayoral candidate, a current mayor here in the region of Waterloo. I'll get to that in just a moment. But you heard Mayor Guthrie in Guelph mention the slate of candidates, councillor and mayoral in Guelph. And there are already 4 names who have come forward to compete for the job of mayor in Guelph. Leanne Caron, Evaristo Ramos Jr., Ryan Munier, and the most recent is Ken Chu. So 4 candidates have come forward to seek the mayor's chair in Guelph. Back here in the region, in the city of Kitchener, there's a lot of questions being asked about incumbent mayor Barry Verbanovic, and will he be seeking another term? This is a guy that's been in municipal politics for more than 30 years now, dating all the way back to 1994. And Barry Verbanovic is yet to put his name forward for another term as mayor in Kitchener. David Alton has, Wasma Frog has, and George Trinea has put their names forward, George being the most recent, putting his name forward on June the 4th. So just a few weeks ago. But nothing yet from Kitchener Mayor Barry Verbanovic as far as his intentions or aspirations are concerned. And Clinton sent me an email last week to Mike at 570news.com. Clinton is one of our Farwell's Force members and a regular listener to the show. And he said, well, what if Mayor Verbanovic is kind of playing his cards close to the vest because he's thinking of applying for or has applied for that job as regional chair? That's going to be an appointed position from the provincial government, remember? And I heard that same rumor again just this weekend. Oh, I heard that Barry's going to run for regional chair instead of mayor this time around. I have also heard the rumors, and I don't think they hold water. I think your bucket's got a leak, but you never know because it is a municipal election year. The regional chair appointment is going to be a very interesting one. I think there are a number of people we could look to in this region, and Barry Verbanovic would be one of them, who we could make a case for as regional chair. I wonder if the province, though, is going to appoint anyone who is local, or if we're going to get somebody from more outside of the region. Remains to be seen. But I'm not certain there's any flame yet around the smoke that is the rumor of Barry Verbanovic becoming the regional chair. I'll keep my ears on it, I promise. And one more thing I want you to keep your ears on. If you can help me remember this, okay? There is a candidate seeking election in Ward 5 in Waterloo. Ward 5 is Jen Vasek's ward in Waterloo. and she has decided to retire from politics, at least for now. So that ward is going to be open. And one of the people competing for it is a gentleman by the name of Scott Pietkowski. And Scott has been a school board trustee and a former chair of our public school board for some time now. And I personally think he's been a disaster in office. So I would encourage you to keep the city of Waterloo scot-free in the upcoming municipal election. Okay? Don't let somebody that's been a disaster at the school board level be a disaster at the municipal council level. Keep the city of Waterloo scot-free in this election. That's my appeal to you on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It's one of those songs that I wish I could just let play on and on and on for its full 4+ minutes. But this is a talk show, not a music show. But we do talk about music on the show. And I'm only allowed to play 59.9 seconds of a song at a time. You know that was Bryan Adams and Heaven. Some, not just CanCon, but some, like, that's just some great 80s ballad kind of stuff, isn't it? Starting our weekly trip down a musical memory lane every Monday morning at this time. It's This Week in Music History with our good friend and musicologist, Brian Allison. I want to remind you that Brian operates a Facebook page by the same name, This Week in Music History, so you will find these tidbits and more. Mr. Allison, good morning, sir.
Hi, Mike.
Don't you just love that one from, I mean, I like a lot of Bryan Adams' stuff. That's one of my favorites.
I love it too. It's a great song and a great track from a great album. Incredible time for Bryan Adams in that period where he was first emerging as such a big recording star in the 80s.
Absolutely true. We are 80s heavy on This Week in Music History this week, but why don't we just start right there with the reason we started the segment today with Heaven by Bryan Adams. It was on this very day in 1985.
It sure was. We go way back to 85, and this is Bryan's first #1 hit on the Billboard 100 in the USA from, of course, what would become the multi-platinum selling album Reckless, arguably his best release to date. I think it's probably the album that Bryan is best remembered for. The song first appeared on a soundtrack to the 1983 film A Night in Heaven. Now, you might have to look that one up because I had to look it up. Never heard of it, didn't even really recognize too many of the actors or extras in the film, so I think it was a film that kind of came and went. But that was originally part of the soundtrack. And the history of the song is that Bryan was touring with Journey in 1983. He was opening a bunch of shows for them, and they had, of course, the 1983 hit Faithfully, which he really liked that song and intentionally sort of fashioned his next song, which would become Heaven, after the song Faithfully by Journey. And it even features a member of Journey. Steve Smith plays drums on Heaven, so that's pretty cool. Jimmy Iovine, who was working with Bryan Adams at the time, not as a producer, but was working with him on some separate tracks, he didn't like the track for Bryan Adams. He thought it was too light. Those were his words, and said that he should leave it off the Reckless album after hearing the rough cut for Reckless. He said, yeah, that Heaven song, it's a little too light for you. You should leave that off and maybe release it at another time. But Bryan was originally going to do that. And at the very last minute before the album was pressed, he decided, you know what, I'm throwing it on there. I think it's a great song. And again, he was right. It turned out to be his first #1 hit.
Imagine. And, I can see Jimmy Iovine's point there about considering the other tracks from Reckless, right? But I don't know. You can show a little bit of range. And I guess in this case, the songwriter knew best, eh?
Well, and I think Bryan was probably looking at what was happening with a lot of, rock and harder rock bands at the time. No matter how heavy or how rockin' your album was, you usually threw on a softer ballad in there, even if it was just to draw in some additional female fans, get the song playing on radio. It was a good thing, but I mean, you can't deny that's just a great song. How could you leave it off?
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Okay, this week in 1986, June the 21st of 86. Hello, Genesis.
Oh, another first for a band who, surprisingly had been, Genesis had been around for quite a long time by the time they hit their first UK #1 album. And this was their 13th studio album with Invisible Touch. And it remained in the charts for 96 weeks, which is a pretty impressive span. And it was clearly their most commercially successful album, selling over 15 million copies worldwide. And it produced 5 U.S. top 5 singles, which is pretty impressive. So, it was a bit of a departure for Genesis. Some of the hardcore progressive rock fans criticized the album for being too pop-oriented, but there was a lot of good stuff on there that wasn't pop. There was some longer, complex pieces. Tony Banks, over the years, has pointed out songs like Domino and Tonight, 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 which was also released as a single, but, was more of a complex prog rock song. So good for Genesis. You know what? You want to make an impression on fans, change things up a little bit, do something a little bit different, and I think Invisible Touch is still today a great album, and #1 at this time in 1986.
Tonight, Tonight, Tonight is still one of my faves on the playlist that I've made of my favorite songs, which is a long playlist. I guess I have, lots of different favorites, but that belongs on there for sure. And I'm certain, Brian, that you remember the Columbia House days, right?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, you couldn't wait to get that bundle of records.
Exactly.
12 records and a 13th for free, I think it was, and then you had to buy maybe 3 or 4 over the next couple of years.
They'd always give you more bargains and sales along the way, though, too.
I thought Columbia House was fantastic. I built a vinyl collection out of Columbia House. My parents used to get quite miffed at me for signing up again and having to, charge things on their credit card. But yeah, I thought Columbia House was great. Did you have that one from Columbia House?
That's why. It was the Invisible Touch was my first. And I was cassettes, not vinyl, but it was my first cassette from Columbia House. Invisible Touch.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to remember what my first Columbia House purchase was.
I don't know why it stands out. That's how I always associate that album. I remember it being the first one I got from Columbia House. So there you go.
Amazing. Yeah, it still sounds great today. If you spin Invisible Touch today, I still think there's some very fresh sounding material on there. It's held its own over time. It's still a fantastic record.
So we've gone from Bryan Adams to Genesis, and why don't we just do another big 1980s act? This week, June the 23rd, 1984.
Yeah, I didn't realize we were so 80s heavy this week, not until I looked at the sheet afterwards. But yeah, it was 1984 when Duran Duran topped the top 100 for the first time as well. A lot of firsts in the 80s that we're going through today. So this was the week that the Reflex, the song from Seven and the Ragged Tiger, hit #1 in the UK, and that was a huge record for them. I mean, by 1984, Duran Duran was just massive, a huge band globally. People were even referring to them as the Fab Five, being from England and being sort of poster boys and selling out concerts and platinum singles. Legions of screaming, mostly female fans. Just an incredible time for pop music and for Duran Duran. And of course, the Reflex kind of, that was the big song from them. That was the dance cut that everybody loved. I still haven't been able to figure out what it's about. I've read the lyrics hundreds of times in my lifetime. I don't know what they're talking about. But it's a great song nonetheless. And even cooler, that famous video for the Reflex was shot in Toronto at Maple Leaf Gardens during their tour. And I even know there's a close-up of a female fan who's sort of waving her hand in the air in one of the audience songs. She went to Eastwood. I remember her from high school, and she became instantly famous.
Come on,
the girl in the Reflex video.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Everybody used to talk to her at the video dances and ask her about being at that show and stuff. So it was pretty cool.
Love it. Brian Allison is our good friend and musicologist who joins us every Monday morning, 11 a.m. for a look back at this week in music history. And we're not yet done on the deep dive into the 1980s. One of the best voices ever and she was big in the 80s, still to come, plus a Canadian who makes some chart history. We'll get to that as we continue This Week in Music History with Brian Allison here on The Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Monday morning on the show, just after the 11 a.m. news, we take a look back at this week in music history, and helping us along with the journey is musicologist Brian Allison, who also, by the way, operates a Facebook page that you should know about and follow along. It's called the same thing we call this segment, This Week in Music History. Find it on Facebook. Follow along here. And Brian, let's continue that deep dive or finish it off into the 1980s. This is one of the best voices I think we have ever had the privilege of hearing. June 27th, 1987, Whitney Houston makes a little history.
She made a lot of history, yeah. And on that date, she became the first female artist to debut at the top of the U.S. album chart with her debut album, Whitney. Incredible record. So it featured songs like I Want to Dance with Somebody, So Emotional. It also made Whitney Houston the first woman to score 4 number one hits from one album and the first artist to achieve 7 consecutive chart-topping singles on the Billboard Hot 100. Imagine releasing 7 songs in a row, your first 7 songs, every single one of them hits number one. That's just an incredible legacy. And that record, that debut album, would go on to sell 25 million copies worldwide. So there was a very, very good appetite for Whitney Houston's style of music in 1987, and she would go on to, of course, be one of the great divas in popular music before her untimely death.
Untimely indeed, a great voice that was lost. And think of him what you want. We lost a musical icon, really, this week in 2009.
Yeah, always got to separate. I mean, I'm a musicologist, not going to go into the criminology of this artist in any kind of way whatsoever. But we lost Michael Jackson, the king of pop, died very, very suddenly at his Beverly Hills home. And we can talk, we can say his personal life in the later years was mired with some controversy and mystery. But his influence is just undeniable. He became a child performer with his brothers in the Jackson 5, and then by 1979, he's a young man who's putting out solo albums like Off the Wall, and then 82 Thriller hits and basically changed popular music as we've known it. Just an incredible record, highest selling album of all time. Nothing can eclipse Thriller in terms of sales worldwide. 7 top 10 hits off one record, and that's just an incredible legacy as well. I mean, he broke racial barriers on MTV, and even after Thriller, I mean, his follow-up records, people forget about albums like Bad and albums like Dangerous. They set records worldwide, too. He wasn't selling, 50 million copies, but he was certainly selling tens of millions of copies of those records as well. And, Jackson's physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, he would be charged with the involuntary manslaughter for Michael Jackson's death after he died of acute propofol intoxication, which was a drug Dr. Murray was administering to help him sleep. And he served 2 years in a California prison for that conviction. So very sad day when we lost the King of Pop. Incredible artist, incredible legacy. You cannot deny what he contributed to rock and roll.
Couldn't agree more. And you can sometimes, and in this case, I agree with you, separate the artist from some of the actions away from music. You cannot deny the influence of Michael Jackson and, quite frankly, the legacy that he leaves behind. The music was and remains incredible.
Just incredible. Have you seen the movie yet, Mike?
I haven't. I keep seeing it pop up every time I turn on one of my streaming services, but I have not yet seen it.
Yeah, we haven't seen it yet, you too, but we kind of pledged that we might do that this weekend. I'm sort of anxious to view it as well because it's got really good reviews.
All right, this week in 2016, June the 24th of 2016, Drake is in the news.
Oh, Drizzy goes big. So yeah, this was when Drake set a record. So he set a UK record, a chart record for the digital age when his song One Dance, which featured Wizkid and Kyla, became the longest running number one single since the time that downloads and streams were included in that ranking. So it wasn't just album sales, record sales. They started to include streams as well and downloads. And the song, which was on his fourth album, Views, spent 11 weeks on the charts. And it also marked Drake's first number one hit as a lead artist in another 15 countries, including the U.S., including Australia, and here in Canada, where it was number one as well. Views, the album, would go on to sell about 8 million copies worldwide. So not bad for a guy who made his start as an actor on Degrassi, The Next Generation.
Excellent reminder. Excellent reminder. Okay, and I saved this one for last on purpose because you got to love when they come out with the greatest lists, right? The best of lists. They're done just to make us talk, and I'm sure we're still talking long after this particular list came out on June the 26th, 2008.
Yeah, Total Guitar Magazine, they love to do sort of these greatest lists. They put them out all the time, and they're always a good topic of conversation. People agree with them. People disagree with them. People will get in online arguments about these. So it's just really a great conversation starter. But this one particularly, Total Guitar Magazine released its list of greatest cover songs of all time. Ooh, tough call. So ranking number one was Jimi Hendrix with his copy of All Along the Watchtower. Can't really argue with that. Great cover, probably even as good or better than the original released by Bob Dylan. Number two was the Beatles' rendition of Twist and Shout. A lot of people don't even know it was first recorded by the Top Notes. It wasn't a Beatles composition, but of course the song that probably put them on the map as well. And then number three came in at Guns N' Roses' version of Wings' Live and Let Die. I don't know if I'd put that in my top three. It's a great cover, very similar to the one that Paul McCartney and Wings released, but pretty cool nonetheless. I think it was a good list. And then, of course, they had what they felt was their worst cover song of all time. Any thoughts of what that might be?
The worst cover song of all time? See, I used to be so against cover songs generally, Brian. I would avoid them like the plague. No, what was the worst cover song of all time?
There's some stinkers out there, but they in their opinion, they felt that Celine Dion's rendition of the AC/DC song "You Shook Me All Night Long" was horrendous. And
they're probably onto something.
Yeah, not really in her wheelhouse. I saw her perform it live on a show once, and I thought, okay, I get what she's trying to do here. She's trying to rock out a little bit, show everybody, she's not all about the lovey ballads or whatever, but it just didn't really take. It's not convincing enough. There's some other bad ones out there too. I've seen some cover songs where I've kind of gone, yeah, I probably would have left that off the album. I'm kind of like you. I'm not a huge fan of cover songs. I always feel like they're filler. Maybe you needed one more track for your album, and let's just do a cover song of somebody else's song. Very few of them are memorable, but anyways, Total Guitar Magazine felt that these cover songs were noteworthy, and I think they were right.
And they were absolutely right with Celine Dion being the worst of those cover songs. We'll agree on that too.
just not convincing. She couldn't pull it off. It wasn't. I remember around the same time, I think Pat Boone put out an album that was all heavy metal covers. He was covering Metallica songs and Kiss songs, and it was kind of no, you just can't do that. Like you're not endearing any new fans to you. You're not buying any new fans with that. Just maybe stay in your lane.
Yeah, I like that phrasing. I like it a lot. Brian, next Monday is the 29th, our last time before Canada Day. So we're going to do like all Canadian on This Week in Music History, right?
I can't wait. I got some great Canadian stories lined up to talk about if people want to call in and talk about their favorite Canadian artists. I'm looking forward to that.
Sounds good. We'll talk in a week's time. Thanks for this.
Thanks, Mike. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. Brian Allison is a musicologist who joins us every Monday morning, 11 a.m., for a look back at this week in music history. And because next Monday, the 29th, is just a few days away from Canada Day, we will use it as our Canadian content version of This Week in Music History. And in light of that, let me first remind you that there is a Facebook page that musicologist Brian Allison operates. It's called This Week in Music History. Really easy to find and follow. Just look up This Week in Music History on Facebook. But because Brian and I will do a deeper dive into Canadian music next Monday on this segment, I thought, well, Friday when we do our requests, it feels a little too far removed from Canada Day next Wednesday. You know, and you got the whole weekend, and then we're going to talk Canadian music on Monday anyway, and maybe it's just too easy. I don't know. Either way, I don't know how this one popped into my head. Maybe it was the people I saw walking across streets with their noses buried in their phones, and I worried about their personal safety. Maybe it's the news from a couple of big children's hospitals in the country saying, hey, that's the Montreal Children's Hospital, the BC Children's Hospital. You know, those e-scooters, they're not toys. We're seeing a lot of young people suffering very serious injury from whipping around on these things. Maybe that's what's gotten into my head. But your theme this week for All Request Friday, streets, roads, and avenues. I'm sure you can figure it out from there. Send your request to me via email, mike@570news.com, or give Jen a call. Let her know what song you would like to hear this Friday for All Request Friday under the theme Streets, Roads, and Avenues. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Now, that cat couldn't spell to win a bet, but he carried this battered notebook full of his poetry. More soul per square word than the Lord's Prayer. He was the kind of guy that called a spade a shovel, and a violin a fiddle, and a lady ma'am. And I don't even know why I think of him now. Maybe because he never told me a lie he'd have to apologize for later. Because he'd speak to a guy straight, eyeball to bloodshot eyeball. Like he'd never even had a secret.
That is our good friend David Drewe. He is the owner of Negotiating Change, government relations, and stakeholder engagement strategies. But really, we have David here because of his deep political experience. He was a staffer.
And I'm a geek.
You're a geek?
It's like I just realized as we were talking about one of the subjects and I was briefing you on it, I'm like, oh my God, Mike, I am such a geek.
You are a geek. But this is, see, we need more geeks. I'm a geek in some ways too, and I wear the term geek or nerd proudly. But this is how we get the inside baseball kind of information that otherwise we might not get. So as you're going about your daily life, and I know it's a busy life, I know you're just trying to put some roast beef and mashed potato on the tables, we just listen in with David Drewe Monday mornings at 11:30.
That's such a 2015 expression, Mike.
What? Roast
Nobody
beef?
Can afford roast beef and potatoes anymore. Now it's chicken and rice. And even the chicken is getting unaffordable.
You know how much chicken and rice we've been eating in the Farwell household lately?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's dive in, because you know what makes things unaffordable? When the federal government teams up with one of our provincial governments to bail out condominium developers. That's what makes life more expensive for Canadians.
Right after the House rises so that nobody can ask about it in question period until the fall. But Mark Carney and David Eby got together and bought out a bunch of empty condos from failed developers in downtown Vancouver to turn into affordable housing. And it's one thing to say, yes, yay, we are getting all these units of affordable housing, but why wasn't the market wanting these units? You know, how many families are going to be able to move into these micro condos, or is it going to be single people only? And secondly, if we are going to be bailing out developers when times are hard because of market conditions, are we then going to windfall tax them when they are doing very, very well? Like, this is everything that is wrong with saying we have a failure in the housing market. We don't have a housing market. If you are too big to fail, the government will come in and buy your units, save you from your losses, and chalk it up as a social program. So this is the kind of crony capitalism that I really, really, really don't like. And I was said to you, before we started, the windfall tax idea. It sounds really, really great. Hey, this is found money. Why don't we tax the windfall? Because then the other side of the equation is, well, are you going to bail them out when they're having a rough time? And I never hear the NDP saying, oh, well, we're going to bail out the oil sands when it's rough because we took the windfall taxes from them. It's both sides of the equation is screwing up the market. And it just makes it harder and harder for somebody to get by because, again, it's not about affordable housing. It's about bailing out billionaires.
Okay. Let's jump around on your list here, since we're talking about no questions until the fall when Parliament resumes sitting. Well, our provincial Parliament is also gone until the fall. It's a lengthy summer break for most anyway, but committees are still going to be in session.
One committee in particular, and this is the topic where I realize what a geek I am. But it was as I was getting excited about talking about this committee sitting over the summer that I realized, oh my God, I am not normal. So what happens is when the Premier makes appointments to various things like, the Board of Governors for Conestoga College or the oversight body of TVO where you're given a hospital there, they're subject to scrutiny by a committee. Except if the committee is not sitting for more than 30 days, these appointments just become automatic, allowing the government to appoint anyone they want without transparency or scrutiny. So what happened late last week, just before Queen's Park rose, was the Speaker, a nominal Conservative, but Speakers are nonpartisan, but ruled against the government and said the opposition was right that this committee can keep sitting all summer to keep scrutinizing through government appointments. So there will be no window for a lack of transparency for the Doug Ford government to be putting names on the list that they might not normally want to be talking about because they'll be able to have them there in the past tense. It's like by the time we get around to questioning about BC condos in the fall, who's going to care by then? It's the exact same idea of punting the ball. And yeah, we're never really probably going to appreciate the difference this makes, because it's going to be the dog that didn't bark. You know what I mean? The government is not going to be putting through the same people as they would have because they now know they're going to be going through the scrutiny. So we're not going to see what might have happened. We're not going to appreciate this. But I'm sure that the Speaker did not endear herself to her caucus mates or her former caucus mates with this ruling. So it's worth noting in a few different ways. Number one, the opposition in a majority parliament got their way on the standing orders. A speaker, which is nominally a member of the governing party, ruled with the opposition. And the end result is going to be a whole bunch of stuff that we are never going to be paying attention to, but should be so grateful for.
We should be, because it sounds like...
Well, no, but that's just it. These names are
partisanship and nepotism.
There's a fair bit of that in anything in any way, but it's the excesses.
Yes.
That would come through without scrutiny, but because there's going to be the scrutiny...
So should be avoided.
It will be avoided because the names aren't going to be put forward.
There you go.
So we're never going to notice.
All right.
Like, this is just it. You have to be a geek to appreciate this, Mike.
But the outcome should be better for Ontarians.
Yeah, this is the maintenance on the water system the region of Waterloo didn't put in. You know what I mean? It's preventing the leaks.
Okay. Mark Carney echoing Justin Trudeau?
Mark Carney's Liberals have been having a distinctly Justin Trudeau arrogance tone to them over the past week. And no, Dominic LeBlanc aside, and Mark Carney aside as well. But their caucus chair, John Maloney, has been going out there, and whenever he's been asked a question about a difficult issue, his reply has been, Canadians trust us. And that is the quickest way to burn through capital, is to be dismissing relevant questions by saying, not trust us, but Canadians trust us, because you have just said Canadians trust us. So if I have something in my head where I'm like, wait a minute, I have a concern about this, I want to hear an answer, and he says Canadians trust us, all of a sudden I'm not in the group that trusts him.
No, you're a fringe minority then.
Well, it's the same sort of wedging. Canadians trust us. If you don't trust us on this very specific issue, well, where are you if you're not a Canadian who trusts us? Now, Steve McKinnon has been coming out with some crazier talk. There is no question that the Liberal Party is now the party of law and order in this country. That was one of his overstatements. Mark Carney has a reverence for Parliament, is how he replied to the question of Mark Carney showing up for 1/4 of question periods, despite being in the House or in the Parliament buildings for most of the ones he's missed. He has a reverence for Parliament, a deep reverence for Parliament. Don't pee on me and tell me it's raining. But that's just it. Steve McKinnon is literally saying, don't believe your lying eyes. Believe what I am telling you. And he's had a few examples of that over the past week. And this is the Liberal kryptonite of arrogance. And when you just come out and say, Hey, no. Everything's perfect. Just cancel your Disney Plus subscription if you have affordability problems. You have a communications issue. And in both cases, they're getting to this point where they are not answering questions or even leaning on credibility. They are just burning through credibility and gaslighting us. And you can get away with that for a week, a while, here and there. But if this is a tone that continues, they are going to be dropping faster than ever, because nobody who has, and this is suggested, we want to give this government the benefit of the doubt. There's a reason they're doing well in the polls. There's a reason why I am out here criticizing communications and not policy from them, because generally I think they are moving in the right direction. But if there is one thing that's going to cheese me off, is if they are lying to my face. And that's what I feel like has been coming out this past week.
I know I'm mixing metaphors here because it was provincial, and they talked about grading, applying grades to students based on attendance. How is it that you can only attend 1/4 of question periods, and many of those that you missed, you were in the Parliament building for? You just don't go into the House? Come on. How can that be? We need to grade Mark Carney on his attendance.
Well, there's something to that. But on the other side of it, how can he say he has a reverence for the institution of Parliament when he's so haughtily dismissive of it? It stinks.
Yeah, he's got better things to do than attend question period.
Yeah, and I am willing to give him so much credit. I shouldn't say so much credit, so much leeway for missing the ones where he wasn't in the Capitol, because we are so used to the idea of the Prime Minister leading giant trips or going to the end of the negotiations to close the deal and sign it. We now have a Prime Minister who's going around knocking on doors and opening them and doing the beginning of the sales process for the country. That is that takes a whole lot more work than just showing up and signing at the end. So I do understand that he is our best asset for trade, and he is going out there and doing that. But when you're in town 2 floors away, you don't even have to show up for the whole darn thing. Just show up for the leaders round. Once Pierre Poilievre and Bloc leader are done with their questions and the people who only get answers from ministers show up, leave. But show up for the leaders round. You don't have to be there for an hour. Just show up for that first 16 minutes.
Showing up is half the battle, I once heard. David Drewe joins us Monday mornings at 11:30, something we call Drew's Views, high-speed rail, Alberta separation, and the interruption of a regional council meeting still to be discussed with David Drewe this morning on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Monday mornings, 11:30. David Drewe, owner, negotiating change, government relations strategies, and a former Conservative Party staffer. Stephen Harper was Prime Minister. Harold Albrecht was the MP for Kitchener-Conestoga. David Drewe worked alongside Harold in that constituency. Let's talk about Alberta and separatism, but primarily the polling that shows just exactly what we would do to prevent the separation from happening.
Yeah, beware of novel concepts in polling. And this is the exact same arguments I was making when Mark Carney was first elected. And we saw all the optimism in the world that a pipeline was going to be imminent. And here we are a year later. And once we start getting down to actual pipeline routes, it turns out some people might want to object. And that's where we are. Apparently, there's this huge majority of Canadians outside Alberta who are willing to go to quite great lengths to keep Alberta in Canada. And that just is so great. The phone rings. Hey, Mike, this is Angus Reid on the phone. You can call me Gus. I wanted to ask you, how far are you willing to go to keep Alberta in Canada? And you're like, well, pretty darn far, Gus. And he's like, thank you. But then we start getting down to the costs of these decisions. And do British Columbians really, really want to accept a pipeline going through? Or were they meaning something else specific that might only impact Ontario? Like when you get through to what are the specific things, it's not just a question of how many, it's a question of who. And so if the objections are all centralized in BC, well, that pipeline conversation going to BC becomes a whole lot more complicated than if it's evenly distributed across Canada. And then you look at something like, well, we were looking at a potential mega site for a battery plant here in this area. Who could be against a battery plant? Well, it turns out you have to assemble a whole bunch of farmland for this mega site. So there is a cost to it. There's always going to be constituencies who will be vocally against specific solutions. And until you've heard their objections, do you really have an educated opinion that you are willing to stick to about how far you are willing to go to keep Alberta in? So it's really great that we all have this good attitude now. But until we take our wallets out and start dropping money in the bucket, so to speak, it's really just a novel concept that we haven't thought through. So beware of the novel concepts in polling.
All right. I never take my wallet out. It's a rule that I have. And that's why when you put high-speed rail on your list of things to talk about, my eyes glaze over a little bit because all I see are dollar signs, David, and a project much like Highway 7 from Kitchener to Guelph for all-day, two-way GO transit for this region. That will never, ever happen, at least not in my lifetime. That's my belief. But what would you like us to know about high-speed rail?
Well, Transport Minister Steve McKinnon came out last week and said he has directed Alto to consider a third Kingston stop. Or pardon me, a third stop. Right now, it's a stop potentially in Peterborough or a stop just north of Kingston, barely touching the northern edge of the city. So now they're being directed to consider a route that goes directly through Kingston. And councillors for both Kingston and South Frontenac, I'm quoting now, had already voted in separate motions in support of telling Alto and federal officials they oppose the route unless it goes all the way to Kingston and stops there. Not ends, but it goes through downtown Kingston. So we had two choices. One was by Peterborough, one was near Kingston. Peterborough really doesn't want the disruption to their agricultural land. And now Kingston's saying, well, we don't want it unless it comes right through our downtown. I can't imagine what tearing up an urban area to make this happen will add to the cost as opposed to just, putting rails down across farmland. Not to diminish that, but when you start talking about a major high-speed rail going through an urban center, there's going to be some redevelopment required. There's going to be some property changes. What is being added to the bill here? But hey, let's take a look at it because I don't know how much money we've already spent on this. The finance minister's wife has a good six-figure salary as one of 13 vice presidents for a choo-choo that doesn't operate yet. But hey, let's consider a third route. Let's tear down Kingston while we go at it.
How do I get one of those VP positions? They need a 14th, surely, don't they?
Well, they need somebody to do PR for them because, really, somebody's got to polish this turd.
I'm in. Okay, we had a most unfortunate, in my opinion, interruption of a regional council meeting last week, David. I'm curious as to your views. I may have just written about mine. It'll be in the Waterloo Region Record on Wednesday morning or online tomorrow. What's your take on the interruption?
I think there's a difference between assaulting someone and assaulting a police officer. I think there's a difference between having a protest about something and having a protest directly where the services are used. And I think disrupting democracy in the way they did should be an aggravating factor in charges. I'm just going to leave it right there. This was about intimidating our democratic process, and that should be just a little bit more than a public nuisance. I'm going to use the word, and I'm saying this with a smile that you can see, and I'm hoping the sarcasm is dripping from my voice, but it's the difference between murder and terrorism. This wasn't just people being disruptive. This was disruptive to intimidate our political actors. And that intent should be the consideration in the penalties, not just the fact that they wandered through and did no harm. They were there to intimidate. They succeeded. They should be punished. And I'm sorry if I sound like the hammer of God and law and order when I say that, but I actually believe in our democratic institutions, unlike Mark Carney. And that
was a drive-by.
That was. I treasure our democratic institutions. I have a deep reverence for them. And the idea that 10 people can come in and disrupt the government of 500,000 people because they are unhappy with a decision and so far, it just sounds like they're being rewarded with people like me coming out and talking about it. I would like to see that there's some punishment for this. And I'm not saying put the death penalty on them, but I would like to know that people are going to think twice before they do this again, because I actually like our democracy to function.
Yeah, and intimidation is the exact word that I used and would again. And you're right, our democracy to function, because I think this will lead to less access to said democracy. That whole horseshoe might end up being closed off because of this, and that is not a good thing.
Bingo.
Yeah. David, always appreciate the time.
Oh, wow, we got through everything.
We got through, imagine that.
How much time do we have?
30 seconds.
I volunteered at the Wellesley Community Picnic on Friday, and I just want to do a shout out to all the volunteers who made that thing work. There was the Lions Club running the barbecue. There was bands on stage. The volunteer firefighter department was out. Police chorus was there. Police auxiliary was there. It was a great little small town event. So thank you to everybody who made that possible.
I heard nothing but glowing reports from the Wellesley Backyard Barbecue. Well done. Thanks for volunteering, and thanks for being here this morning.
Have a good one, sir.
David Drewe joins us every Monday morning, 11:30, to share his views. It is Drewe's Views, always part of the Mike Farwell Show, just like Rant or Rave is always part of this show. And your rants and or raves come up next on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
And so another Talkback Hour begins. We set aside this time for you every day on the show because we want you to have the opportunity to have your voice heard. The issues of the day that we've discussed here on the show, like the embarrassment that is Donald Trump's peace deal, if you want to call it that, with Iran, and what an absolute disaster this unnecessary war was for the U.S. administration. We talked about a new poll from Research Co. out of British Columbia that suggests a dramatic increase. Up to 60% of Canadians today say they would reinstate the death penalty if given the option to do so here in Canada. Or you might want to just bring forward something that is an issue in your neighborhood that matters to you. We are absolutely here for the conversation. And on Mondays, this Talkback Hour is in keeping with a long-standing tradition on the show. You can rant or you can rave, and either of those things can be accomplished with one simple phone call. The numbers to reach us, 519-570-2545, star 570, or 1-800-570-5715. David Drewe, who was here for Drewe's Views at 11:30, just left a few minutes ago, finished off his segment today by raving about the great Wellesley barbecue, a community barbecue on Friday. I heard nothing but great things about it. David was singing the praises of all of the volunteers who helped to make it happen. That would be an example of a rave. And a rant is something that's got you upset and or frustrated about whatever. Let's hear from you on the show today. We will begin our ranting and or raving with Kyle. Good afternoon, Kyle.
Good afternoon. Don't even get me started with diesel prices. They have barely come down much. I see gas prices go down a little bit up and down. Diesel prices are just kind of staying the same. But kind of disappointed in you earlier today because you said to somebody that we're allowed anything we want on the show. Did you not say that earlier?
We absolutely are.
I'm not allowed to say the team that shall not be named.
That's the one rule. Okay. You're allowed to do anything you want except one thing. Listen, Kyle, I've said this so many times before. You can say anything you want on the radio once. So I could go off onto a blue streak of cursing, and then you'll never hear me again. So you have the same rule. Go ahead and try me one more time, pal.
No, it's just a fine print. I just want to make sure that
Stop
we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's,
Stop it.
All right. Have a good day, Mike. That's my rant. Bye.
That's all you wanted to do, eh?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Goodbye.
Ciao.
Yeah, ciao, he says, as if we're best buddies. Now, listen, it's one rule. That is it. Other than that, and listen, you can still, we all know who you mean, but the team that shall not be named will remain an unnamed team. It is that simple, okay? And that's all. And if you invoke the team that shall not be named, this guy, listen, you want to talk about that Research Co. survey that shows 60% of Canadians would reinstate the death penalty today if given the option. And a lot of people will tell you, and I don't believe this to be true for the record. In fact, I could point to ample research that shows it's not true. But a lot of folks would suggest that the death penalty is the right kind of deterrent to reduce and or prevent the number of homicides. By the way, that's what the poll was all about. It would only be for murder cases. I know we could get into all kinds of different things, but it was about murder cases specifically. So if you are convicted of murder, you could get the death penalty. 60% of Canadians would like to see that. It's really not a deterrent. It's not a deterrent at all. In fact, you look at places where the death penalty, even to this day, is still in place, and there's no reduction in the number of homicides because when it comes to murder, it is more often than not something that is carried out as a crime of passion in the heat of the moment for whatever reason, or the person carrying it out believes some way, somehow, as though they're going to get away with it. I wonder how anybody thinks they get away with anything anymore, given the sheer number of cameras that exist, whether they are meant to surveil you or not. We pass by so many cameras at so many different times. I can't believe anybody thinks they can get away with anything at all. In fact, we had a story on All News Mornings today about a theft from a yard in Cambridge. I believe this was copper wire or some such material, and police have released images from the surveillance cameras that were monitoring the yard. If that doesn't lead to finding the person or persons responsible, I don't know what will. Anyway, this all started with the whole idea of the death penalty being a deterrent. Kyle has on more than one occasion deliberately broken the only rule that exists on this show, that thou shalt not name the team that shall not be named. And you have told me I was far too lenient when it came to the penalty that was issued. So go ahead, as I said, go ahead and try me a third time, pal. See how lenient I'm going to be then. I'll go all Bernie Farwell on you. Bernie Farwell, my father, did not give me strike one or two. It was a hardcore punishment right from the get-go. I found me on the receiving end of a few stern groundings, let me tell you. Does anybody get grounded anymore, by the way? Is that still a thing? Have you ever grounded your child? Like in the last 10 or 15 years, do children still get grounded? You remember that? You couldn't go outside and play with your friends, and it was the worst thing ever. How do you even ground a kid today? Anyway, there's another little tangent brought to you by the stream of consciousness that is this show. I also shared on the show earlier today a couple of experiences I had over the weekend. One at King and Cedar in downtown Kitchener, the other at King and Sports World. And in downtown Kitchener, it was the case of three young men crossing in front of me. I had the green light as I was driving along Cedar across King, and I had to do a double take because I'm like, wait a minute, why are these kids crossing the street? Is that light green? Yes, the light's green. That means I can go. Whatever. It wasn't like it was a close call. I was rather amused by the brazenness with which these three young men just crossed the street, and one of them never even looked up from his phone. Never even bothered to glance up from his phone as he crossed a street where there was a vehicle oncoming, and he was crossing against the light. And then there was the other fellow at King and Sports World, and if you've ever been stopped there, which I'm sure you have, it's a huge intersection. You've got Sports World Drive going to your left, the McDonald's, the Moose Winooski's in over there. You've got it's a Chuck's over on your right now. It's a Piper Arms, I think. Either way, it's a massive intersection, so many vehicles, so many things that could happen are happening. And a guy, at least in this case, he had the right of way crossing the street, but his nose was buried in his phone the entire time. And I'm thinking to myself as I sit there at the red light, I'm like, don't you want to know what's going on around you? Aren't you curious at all? Like, isn't this an area where your kids would have told you to look both, or your parents would have told you to look both ways, be aware of your surroundings? All kinds of things could have happened. I just couldn't figure out why. Why on earth the phone was more important than, your personal safety crossing a street. But that's just me. It's what Rant or Rave is for, as phone lines are open to you on the Mike Farwell Show this afternoon. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I love this email from David to Mike at 570news.com. It's kind of the opposite zombie walker. I was telling the stories of the people I saw crossing streets, one of them against the light. It wasn't even their turn to walk, and their heads were buried in their phones. David's email reads, a few weeks back, I was heading to the expressway along Herb Street, and as I approached Terry Stone Walk, a young lady pushed the button to trigger a red on Herb. She was so focused on her phone, she failed to cross when she had the green light. All the traffic was halted on Herb Street, but she did not cross or look up from her cell. I was amazed that no driver blasted a horn. Hey, young lady, it's your turn to cross. But she didn't even notice. So engrossed was she in her phone. That's the opposite of the dangerous part, I think. I don't know. Let's get back to the phones here on Rant or Rave. Ed is with us. Good afternoon, Ed.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to get number 395. I listen all the time, and I have tried to contact you the odd time, but
Ed, I would love to give you 395, but it's already claimed.
Oh my!
I know. Is there another number? I've got 392, 390.
How about a 0395?
You're killing me, Ed. But you know what? If you want to be 0395, then 0395 is what you shall be. Okay, right. You got to remember that now. Can you remember that?
Oh, I can remember that.
Attaboy. 0395 is Ed.
Yes. And my comment, I have two comments, actually. I thank you for your, I appreciate your concern with public affairs. Sometimes you get a little stretched out there, but I think that death sentence could be expanded into people who are caught drug trafficking a number of times, and, with great amounts of these drugs, because they actually ruin lives and end up destroying families and cause premature deaths.
So hang on,
a lot of cases.
You say I get stretched out. You're taking this from murder now to drug trafficking, Ed, hey? Okay.
Well, if we're going to do something, let's do it right.
Okay.
In my opinion. Do it once, do it right.
Gotcha. Okay.
And, there's a lot of things that we kind of do, and then they don't quite make it across the line, the goal line. And, the cases with the doctor and the sexual assaults or whatever there were, that was one case. It's, it's right on the line, eh? So I'd like to make things that, get it over the line.
Well, you want it all black and white, Ed, and I think we know that the world is in Technicolor, isn't it?
It is, but black and white works.
For you, I can understand, sure.
Well, what would your opinion be on that statement about expanding it, for drug dealers? Some of these people are repeat. I mean, it's a way of life for them, right?
I think your point on, and I think this is an overlooked aspect of our opioid fentanyl crisis, et cetera. We are, I think, in many cases, overlooking the people that have profited greatly from this. I think you're onto something.
And there's big people who have profited too.
Sure. And, talking to the pharmaceutical companies?
Let's get the big people. Let's get the big people too. It isn't just for the little guy who's addicted and just trying to, sell to make his, to keep himself going too. I'm not, but big people, let's do it for everybody.
Well, you know what we need then, Ed? We need a threshold of the amount. Like, how do we determine big? Is it $1 million? Is it $1 billion?
No. I don't think we have to. Okay. That's, somebody can figure that out.
Well, I'm trying to figure it out with you. Ed and Mike are going to figure it out today.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think anything over some of these possession cases are, they're distribute or have in the trunk of a car, well, years ago they had in the trunk of the car $30,000 worth of drugs. I know that from somebody locally who I knew was caught like that.
And are you giving somebody
that's years ago?
Are you going to give
$30,000?
Does that person get the death penalty?
No.
Oh no. Okay, so 30,000. 30,000 is okay.
Did?
I got you.
It actually gave him the death sentence. It just took a little time, right? Being involved in it.
I understand. Yes,
there's
that's the Darwin theory working for you.
There's guns involved and everything in that business.
It's dangerous.
They have their death sentence.
They do. Sometimes it has a way of taking care of itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Ed.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to hear from you today.
Yes. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Call again. Bye-bye. Ed's a first-time caller. And you tell me how in HE double hockey sticks I'm going to make number 0395 work on Farwell's Force. We are a force for good, a force for change, a force to be reckoned with. And we are a growing force. We're well over 400. In sequence, we're up to 392, but we've got a bunch of random numbers in there, including now 0395. But how am I going to keep track of that number? Where am I going to put it? We made Mary number one. She's our number one Farwell's Force member, the inaugural. But then along came George, who wanted to be a super spy, so he's 00 George. So you got 00 George before you've got number one, and then two. And then we've got Kyle, who's number 6, but his better half is better, so she's 5.5. I had another guy last week ask for pi as his Farwell's Force membership number. I would like him to recite the entire thing. And then, because he'd still be talking, right? 3.14 he is in as now, Farwell's Force member. Where am I going to put 0395? Where? Well, it's on my piece of paper. You too can be a member of our growing force for good if you listen for 15 minutes a day. That's all I ask for, 15 minutes every day. I know every day is a lot, but sometimes if you skip a day here and there, I get it. But participate in the show just by listening. You can call, you can email, but it's not necessary. If you're just with us, participating in the conversation, just eavesdropping on what we're talking about every day for 15 minutes, you can be a member of Farwell's Force. We'll assign you a number. It can be one of your choosing, or it can be the next in sequence. Just drop me an email, mike@570news.com, or give me a call. We'll put you on the list of Farwell's Force members. Mark is next. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you doing?
Buddy, I'm great. How are you?
Doing good. I've got a rave, actually 2 raves, Mike.
Okay.
I've never seen that many home runs at a baseball game ever.
You and me were at the same Barrie Baycats Kitchener Panthers game yesterday, and those Baycats would not stop hitting homers. 8 of them.
I couldn't believe it.
Same.
I couldn't believe it. And my other rave is I really enjoyed watching the kids run around the bases. That was a lot of fun to watch.
That was great. I loved it too.
Great day, Mike, and it was nice to see you.
Great to see you, buddy. Thanks for calling today.
Okay, Mike.
Good to hear from you. That's our buddy Mark. He has been with us since day one. He's Farwell's Force member number 39. I bet you he doesn't remember that, but I've got it written down, and I knew he was one of the early ones. Dallas is next. Hey, look, another Farwell's Force member. Do you remember your number, Dallas?
Number 30, I believe.
Attaboy, that's what you are. I got it right there.
How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. And yourself?
I'm not too bad.
Good man.
3 quick things. I'll try and be quick. As far as you're talking about the people with their noses buried in the phones, well, we've talked about that before, and they all belong in your jackwagon jail. Guaranteed.
You know what? I haven't put anybody in jackwagon jail in a while. You're right. They do belong in there.
They do. They absolutely do. I mean, everywhere I go, I'm either on the bus or walking, and I see it all the time, and it's stupendous.
You're right.
Frankly.
And you know what? In jackwagon jail, when we say you're in there for life, you're in there for life. There is no getting out.
There you go.
There you go.
That works for me.
Okay.
Mr. Drewe was talking about the rapid the rapid
high-speed rail.
Yeah. Talking about waste of money. How many billions are they at now to bring the LRT to Cambridge? And how many people could they house with the billions of dollars? I don't know. They can, as far as I'm concerned, they can keep the LRT.
All right.
And as far as the Strait of Hormuz, well, you know what? Somebody needs to shove a sock in Mr. Trump's mouth and take his computer away, and it might get straightened out a little quicker.
It just might. To keep the man off social media.
Imagine that, eh? Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing?
All right, Dallas. Thanks for the call today. Good stuff you brought. Thank you for calling in. Farwell's Force member number 30. Maybe we could put Donald Trump in jackwagon jail. Take away all access to his computer. Don't let him get on social media and go off on rants. But you know what? You can go off on a rant on this show. It's Rant or Rave. We do it every Monday from noon until 1, and it's always part of the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. And as you gather those thoughts and prepare to make those calls, let's consider this. Water in this region. It's always been a precious resource. And for these last many months, we've realized how precious it is, because with our water constraints, development has been all but frozen. Now, the region will be allocating water to its lower tier municipalities, the 3 cities, the 4 townships, and maybe that gets those lower tier municipalities in a position where they can begin developments again. Barry Verbanovic is, of course, the mayor of the city of Kitchener, one of those lower tier municipalities, and joins us for a chat. Mayor Verbanovic, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Always a pleasure to join you.
It's always great to get a chance to chat with you, and I appreciate the time on what is such an important issue. And I wonder if we just kind of start where I left off, kind of by way of background. Like, you're a lower tier, the mayor of a lower tier municipality, but the upper tier region kind of holds the water cards. How does this impact what you do as a municipality?
So obviously this is something that we've had to focus on significantly over the last while. As you know, the region's responsible for both water treatment and sewage treatment, but the last mile delivery and the first mile delivery are in fact responsibilities of the area municipalities for all of us except for 2 of the townships. And, with the added switch that's happened in the last couple of years of planning becoming an area of municipal responsibility, this has certainly created, some challenges since the region broke the news to us last December.
So how do you, as a municipality in Kitchener, Mayor Verbanovic, intend to use the water allocation that you receive from the region?
Yeah, so, last week I brought 2 motions forward at Regional Council that really strive to find the balance between making sure that we're preserving this resource as best as we can, recognizing that we are a city of 304,000 and a region of over 700,000. And what we want to do is make sure that in doing so, we're doing it in a way that recognizes the water capacity allocation policy that the region approved on May the 6th, as well as the interim risk management framework that was approved on June the 3rd. And so the motions last week both speak to the timing of the regional quarterly water allocations, as well as the municipal forward-facing servicing agreements. So essentially what all that means, Mike, is that in layperson's terminology, is the region's going to be indicating, as they do their infrastructure work, this is how much water is going to be made available. And based on that, area municipalities will have a certain amount assigned to them, but they will be able to allocate them ahead of time, recognizing that it takes time to build buildings. And so we will be able to issue building permits with those forward-facing agreements that actually allow builders to start building, knowing that the water will be available at a date when their construction is finished.
Have you identified any priorities as to which projects might get the green light first in the city of Kitchener?
So there is a draft proposal that will be coming to council on the 29th, and it's been developed by the area municipalities. I believe it will be going to Woolwich Township first, and it looks at a variety of things. Housing is obviously a priority. Housing that has funding associated from other orders of government, like the province or the federal government, becomes a priority. Things that are associated with creating jobs from an economic development point of view have a priority. And so staff will look at all of these things as they evaluate both the amount of water that's available and how we'll assign it to projects.
How challenging has this level of uncertainty made things for the lower tier municipalities?
Oh, it's been very challenging, Mike. I mean, listen, as you recall, the region often talked about being a million ready, and we could go ahead with 31,000 homes, and then everything essentially, ground to a virtual halt, towards the end of last year. And so, as we've heard from the industry, this involves literally thousands of people's jobs and impacts, many projects, some of which have been in the pipeline for some time. And so really what's key and why we brought these motions forward was we know now that there's a path forward in terms of the infrastructure projects from the region. There's a timeline when different things, different quantities of water will become available. And as that happens, we want to make sure that we're supporting workers in our community as best as we can. And that's what these motions do.
And there's been a lot of talk about that aspect of it for sure, Mayor Verbanovic, that, our economy to a very large degree is at some level of risk here as we are moving through this situation where we're paused or frozen in development. But what would your message be to residents insofar as your confidence that we can get this situation remedied? Because obviously, as the mayor of Kitchener, you also sit on regional council.
Yeah, so Mike, what I would say to you is I have a great deal of confidence. We've been working really well. The region has, not only with the area municipalities, but also with the industry and the province to figure out a path forward. This is a region of barn builders. We solve problems, and we will solve this one as well. It certainly, as you and I have talked previously, came as a surprise to everyone based on previous information given to us. But you know what? There's a process that's looking at how we got there and how we make sure we don't get there again. But in the meantime, the focus is on solving the problem and keeping things moving. As I've always said, we've remained open for business, and we want to make sure that not only does that mean the approval of applications, but also allowing people to commence work on applications as they move forward.
Mayor Verbanovic, as always, we appreciate the time on the show. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks so much, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Enjoy
Bye-bye.
your day. Yep, bye-bye. Kitchener Mayor Barry Verbanovic joining us to talk about how the city of Kitchener is intending on using the water that it is allocated to support housing and growth in the city of 304,000 people. And the new policy in the city is intended to establish what the city calls a clear and transparent framework, which will guide how the available water capacity is allocated across the various development proposals. And what the city of Kitchener intends to do is to prioritize those projects which deliver the greatest community benefit, Those would include new housing, particularly of the affordable kind, essential services, and economic development. I struggle with this because of the two-tier local government structure that we have here, and you heard Mayor Verbanovic talk about it. If you break it down into three parts, the water is controlled 2/3 by the region, if you will, and that last mile is handled by the lower tier municipalities. And in this particular case, it's a problem identified at the region, and it really holds things up at the city. And now it's almost like a competition. It's like the Hunger Games of water allocation here, right? How much can we get, and how do we qualify for it? Kind of like the parent providing the allowance to the child. And if that doesn't seem like a bass-ackwards way to do things in 2026, I don't know what is. This came up in conversation over the weekend, and I'm not the only one. You know, from day one on this show, I expressed my interest in us as a community becoming one unified, amalgamated, I'll use the word because I'm not afraid to, one unified, amalgamated government. For the love of all things holy, this clunky municipal structure that we have in place here has got to go in the interests of moving forward as an innovative, dynamic, nimble community. We have got to get rid of one layer of local government. We have to. I for the life of me, I don't. Well, I do. We cling to it because of the political positions that are being protected. It's as simple as that. There's no other reason there's no argument I can see other than protecting one's own political interests that keep us from getting to a single-tier municipal government. We're a community of 700-ish thousand. We're going to grow to 1 million. We can have one government for that, one regional chair or one mayor of this entire region, and move on from there. Reimagine what a council looks like. Anyway, it's frustrating, not just to me. I'm hearing more and more people talk about it, and I'm willing to listen to those voices and entertain those voices on this show anytime they want to put their 2 cents into the conversation, because I've been putting my 2 cents in for 9 years now, and I will continue to do so because I think it's what's best for this community. One local government. And the water issue in and of itself, we know what kind of a mess this is, but I like one of the things that Mayor Verbanovic talks about, and that is we can allocate the water now knowing that it will be several years before a project is finished necessarily. And I've wondered why the region hasn't been allowing for that already anyway. Yes, we have a constraint problem to deal with, but even as we issue these permits and allow for the development, it doesn't mean the water's being taken overnight. So you could still issue those permits while you work on fixing the problem, unless you don't think the problem can be fixed in that length of time, which becomes an even greater concern. We continue with your rants and or raves on the Mike Farwell Show this afternoon. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I just love this email from Melissa to Mike at 570news.com. She says, I would like to officially become Farwell's Force member number 1 million. I have faith that before you hang up your headphones, you'll reach that many regular daily listeners. Oh, Melissa, I love the faith that you have, and I appreciate it. I also love that Melissa admits, because she spends her days cleaning houses, and when she comes across radios in those houses, she changes most of them to 570 News Radio. I love so much of that, Melissa. I appreciate you greatly. And just on that note, if you do something similar to what Melissa does, and you changed the radio so that it played 570 News Radio, that would be okay with me. Like, to all my car jockey friends out there, shuttling people around or moving vehicles from one place to another, change those radio stations. If you are a mechanic, the car owner will, they'll actually thank you. Change their number one preset on their radio in their vehicle to 570 AM. Because then when they get back in their vehicle and they hit the number one preset, they'll thank you for helping them find this radio station, you see? Because we are the most interactive radio program anywhere in this community, and we get stuff done Farwell's Force members get stuff done. We affect change, and sometimes we just improve our mental health by getting stuff off our chest. That's what Rant or Rave is for. And we'll get back to the phones. Dina, Farwell's Force member number 433. Good afternoon.
That is me.
That is
you. I have two rants.
Okay.
Number one, if it is not an official crosswalk, please, people in cars, do not stop. You know how there's the path that has the little apron in between where you can kind of like skirt through if you're on a bike, but it's not an official like crosswalk.
Yep.
What happens is people stop and give other pedestrians false hope that that's what everybody's going to do. And I worry about the kids that are with their parents. Like, do not, like, tell the cars to drive through. It is not a crosswalk. It's just something like it's a median that lets you kind of go in between. And it gives the children, oh, well, they stopped when I was with my parents. It's not a crosswalk, number one. It's just, I think you understand what I mean.
Yep, totally get it.
Number two, the catastrophic amount of people that I have driving with me in Waterloo, everywhere, really, even on the 401, that are looking at their phones incessantly. What in God's green earth is that important as you're driving? What is it? Like, all kidding aside, most cars have CarPlay. Even older cars can get it installed fairly inexpensively. Plug your phone in, put it in your back seat, put it wherever you want, but please stay off the phone. It makes the whole flow of traffic delayed. It's dangerous. They're distracted. They're driving all over the road. It is just an epidemic, and I don't know why more tickets aren't being handed out. I just don't.
Dina, thank you. Those are great points. Great points. I will admit, I stop for those pedestrians sometimes in the pedestrian islands so they can keep going across the street because it's not that hard for me to do. I hear your point, though. But on the distracted driving and looking at your phones and why, like, there's nothing that important. I'm sorry, sir or madam, you are not that important at all. But while we're talking about vehicles, drivers stopping for people to finish crossing, can I make an appeal here? First of all, I'm fired up. When we resurface Ira Needles Boulevard, can we take away the ding-dang left-hand turn lanes? Why did we even do this? There are roundabouts. Do you know what you can do in a roundabout? Turn around. This is the thing. Every ding-dang day, and if I don't leave early enough, inevitably I get stuck in it. Somebody wants to make a left-hand turn off Ira Needles so they can get into the shopping mall where the Sobeys is, and the Shoppers and the Starbucks. And I love that you want to stop for that vehicle in the left turn lane trying to come across the other two lanes of Ira Needles. But one vehicle stops in the left lane. The right lane doesn't always stop. So you have to get coordination here. And then the traffic just backs up. And again, that person wanting to turn left, just drive to the next roundabout and loop around. And then you don't have to turn. Why did we put the left-hand turn lanes in there? Who came up with... I would like to meet the person who came up with that idea to put the stupid left turn lane on Ira Needles Boulevard, cutting across two lanes of oncoming traffic, and I would like to make them drive Ira Needles every day and experience the hell that it is. It is the most ridiculous thing. Roundabouts are designed to go around. You can drive to the next roundabout, turn around, and enter the mall. It's as simple as that. Take away the left turn opportunity, please. It is the dumbest piece of road planning, and we got a lot of dumb ones in this town. That takes the cake. So stupid. What were you doing? I'm sorry. Dina, I blame you. I mean, I know it's me, but today it's you, okay? I'm just blaming you. Dave in Cambridge, you're on Rant or Rave. I have calmed down. Good afternoon.
No, keep going. I'd like to give a big, huge rave to Hazel May, who recently received her second prestigious award, being inducted into the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame with a prestigious award, and well-deserved, and that's my big shout-out, Hazel May.
All right, Dave.
Have a great day, and keep up the good commentary on your issues.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you too. Hazel May, one of our own here at Rogers. Terry, Farwell's Force, member number 291. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mike. I miss you at the gym. I don't see you there anymore.
Oh, my gosh. I was just telling my beloved this weekend, it's time for my fat ass to get back to the gym. So, buddy, send me a message. Tell me, where are you working out these days?
L.A. Monday to Friday, Crunch Saturday, Sunday.
All right. I'm gonna find you again because I need a good workout, buddy.
Okay. I can do it.
Good man.
Hey, so my rave is, so yesterday was Father's Day. Today is my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And you can actually say 6-7 for this one.
I'd rather not, but okay.
Yeah, me either. I'd rather not, but my grandkids got a big smile on their face when they said it.
I'll bet they did.
So that's a tiny rave. The other one is my kids reached out to me and told me that I was a really good dad. And that really helped because I have really been questioning the parenting skills that I did when they were younger. And so it just helps me accept the fact that I did not screw them up as much as I thought I did.
Attaboy, Terry. Love to hear from you today. I hope we run into each other at the gym sometime very soon. You want to talk about questioning your parenting skills, decisions, etc.? I am raising my hand as high as I can possibly raise it because I am a disaster. A flat out, no holds barred, do not pass go or collect 200 disaster in that department. But that's going to have to wait for another day because we are out of time. I love the conversation. You're invited back tomorrow morning at 9. I'll be here then. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.